11 p.m., the 32nd floor of Horizon Plaza cut through the Chicago skyline like a gleaming sentinel, its windows reflecting the amber glow of a city that never truly sleeps. Michael Reynolds pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway, the soft squeak of its wheels the only sound breaking the oppressive silence. The polished brass fixtures and modern art pieces lining the walls cost more than his entire year's salary, reminders of a world he serviced but could never truly join. 3 years on the night shift had made him invisible to the executives who commanded these corridors during daylight hours. 3 years of emptying trash cans filled with discarded reports and wiping fingerprints from glass doors that separated decision-makers from those affected by their decisions. Michael had come to know the rhythm of the empty building, the particular way shadows formed across the conference rooms at night, the subtle differences in temperature between the east and west wings. He paused outside conference room C, his weathered hand frozen mid-reach for the door handle. Through the frosted glass, a silhouette hunched over the long mahogany table. Not the usual cleaning crew or security guard, but the distinctive posture of Elise Bennett, CEO of Horizon Corporation. The woman whose face graced the cover of Forbes last month, whose decisions influenced markets across 3 continents, now sat alone and trembling. Her tailored blazer appeared uncharacteristically rumpled, one manicured hand pressed desperately against her temple. Even through the translucent glass, Michael could see her breathing coming in sharp, panicked gasps. Her left eye twitched once, twice, and Michael's chest tightened with dread. Those symptoms, he'd seen them before. Stroke, imminent, fatal. The door swung open under Michael's hand with barely a whisper. Elise's head jerked up at the intrusion, her eyes struggling to focus on his face. When she opened her mouth to speak, the words emerged thick and garbled. "I'm fine, just tired." But her left hand lay motionless against the polished wood, completely unresponsive when she attempted to lift it. Terror flashed across her features as the reality struck her. Something was desperately, catastrophically wrong. Michael already had his phone out, fingers dialing 911 with practiced precision. "Ma'am, you're having a stroke. Try to stay calm. I need you to focus on my voice." His words carried the quiet authority of someone who had witnessed this emergency before, who understood exactly what was happening inside her brain at this moment. Elise's eyes widened in shock, not just at his words, but at the absolute certainty in his tone. No hesitation, no panic, just calm efficiency as he communicated precise medical information to the emergency dispatcher. 54-year-old female displaying classic stroke symptoms, facial drooping on the left side, left arm weakness, slurred speech. Symptoms presented within the last 5 minutes. "No, she's conscious. Yes, I positioned her to ensure her airway remains clear." As he spoke, Michael gently adjusted Elise's posture, checking her pulse with 2 fingers against her wrist, his movements both tender and clinical. "You're going to be okay. The most important thing is, we caught this early. Time is brain. That's what my wife always said." The ambulance screamed through downtown Chicago's empty streets, its red and blue lights painting the corporate district in urgent colors. Michael had stayed with Elise through every moment, positioning her correctly to prevent further damage, monitoring her vitals the way Rebecca had taught him during late-night conversations about emergency response. The paramedics looked surprised when this janitor in a gray uniform rattled off medical terminology with casual precision when he answered their questions about symptom onset and progression with clinical accuracy. As they loaded Elise onto the stretcher, she managed to grab Michael's sleeve with her right hand. "How did you know?" she whispered, her speech already clearer thanks to the clot-busting medication coursing through her IV. Michael looked down at this powerful woman who suddenly seemed so fragile, so utterly human. "My wife was a stroke specialist," he said simply. "She taught me to never miss the signs." Morning light filtered through worn curtains, casting gentle patterns across the small kitchen of Michael's apartment in Oakwood, a working-class neighborhood 40 minutes south of Chicago's gleaming business district. He stood at the stove, carefully flipping pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, a weekend ritual that had taken on sacred importance in the 2 years since Rebecca's death. "Triceratops or T-Rex today, buddy?" he called over his shoulder, his voice deliberately light despite the exhaustion that weighed on him after his night shift. 8-year-old Noah appeared in the doorway, hair still tousled from sleep, clutching a well-worn dinosaur encyclopedia. "T-Rex, please," but with extra teeth this time. He climbed onto a chair at the small kitchen table, placing the book down with careful reverence. "Did you save anyone last night, Dad?" Michael paused, spatula midair. He hadn't told Noah about last night's events, about the woman in the conference room or the ambulance ride. "What makes you ask that?" Noah shrugged with the particular nonchalance that children adopt when asking questions of enormous significance. "Mom used to save people, and you know all the things she knew, so maybe sometimes you save people too." The simplicity of his son's logic created a lump in Michael's throat. "I help when I can, buddy, but mostly I just clean offices." He slid the dinosaur pancake onto Noah's plate, adding extra syrup in the pattern of fearsome teeth. "Besides, the real hero in this family is you, getting an A on that science project." Noah beamed with pride, but wasn't so easily distracted. "But Mom always said knowing things about strokes means you can save someone's life. That's why she made you memorize all those symptoms and stuff." Michael sat down across from his son, his own breakfast forgotten. Rebecca had indeed drilled those warning signs into him relentlessly. FAST. A face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulties. Time to call emergency services. She would quiz him randomly during dinner while driving, even in the middle of movies. "What would you do if you saw this?" she would ask, mimicking subtle symptoms that most people would miss. "Your mom was the real expert," Michael said softly. "She saved hundreds of lives at Chicago Memorial." "Before she went to heaven in the car accident," Noah added matter-of-factly, the way children sometimes reference enormous tragedies without fully grasping their weight. "That's right." Michael reached across the table and squeezed his son's hand. 2 years had passed since that rainy night when Rebecca, driving home after a double shift at the hospital, had encountered a drunk driver crossing the median. 2 years of single fatherhood, of night shifts that paid better but meant sleeping while Noah was at school and working while he slept. 2 years of trying to keep Rebecca's memory alive without drowning in grief. The kitchen counter behind them was cluttered with bills, medical expenses from Noah's recent bout with pneumonia, the notice of a property tax increase, the final warning from the electric company. Michael had been stretching every dollar, picking up extra shifts when possible, but it never seemed enough. The refrigerator held a calendar marked with important dates: Noah's school events in green, bill due dates in red, doctor appointments in blue, a color-coded map of their precarious existence. "Can we go to the park today?" Noah asked, expertly navigating around the syrupy carnage on his plate. "I want to try out my new dinosaur facts on the ducks." Michael smiled despite his exhaustion. Their weekend time together was sacred, the only full days they had with each other. "Absolutely, ducks need to be educated about the Jurassic period. It's our civic duty." The apartment was small but tidy, 2 bedrooms in a dated building, decorated with Noah's artwork and framed photos of Rebecca. On the living room wall hung her framed medical degree from Northwestern University, alongside a photo of her in scrubs, smiling broadly on her first day as a stroke specialist. Michael had kept everything, unable to remove any trace of the woman who had filled their lives with purpose and passion. In their bedroom, tucked away in a file box, were Rebecca's medical journals, her handwritten notes on patients and treatments, articles she had published in medical journals. Sometimes late at night, when sleep eluded him, Michael would read them, trying to understand the complex terminology, keeping her voice alive in his head through her precise, compassionate observations about stroke patients and recovery protocols. As Noah disappeared to get dressed, Michael quickly sorted through the mail he'd been too tired to open the night before. Another hospital bill, a school fundraising notice, and an official-looking envelope from their landlord that made his stomach clench. Inside was a formal notification. Rent was increasing by 15% next month due to market adjustments, an impossible sum on his current budget, already stretched to breaking point. Michael leaned against the counter, calculating figures in his head. Even with extra shifts, even cutting back on everything but the absolute essentials, the math didn't work. For the first time since Rebecca's death, he felt the ground truly giving way beneath him. "Dad, look, I made my bed all by myself." Noah's proud voice broke through his thoughts. Michael quickly folded the notice and tucked it into his pocket, forcing a smile. Today was for dinosaurs and ducks. Tomorrow he would figure out how to keep their world from collapsing. The private room at Chicago Memorial Hospital exuded the particular luxury reserved for VIPs. Actual artwork on the walls instead of generic prints, a leather sofa for visitors, flowers that had arrived by the dozen since word of Elise Bennett's minor health incident had been carefully managed by Horizon's PR department. Elise sat up in bed, her hospital gown incongruous against her usual image of power and control. Her dark hair, usually styled in a perfect bob, fell loose around her shoulders, making her appear younger, more vulnerable. The monitors beside her bed beeped with reassuring regularity, their digital readouts confirming what the doctors had already told her. She had survived with minimal damage thanks to extraordinarily prompt treatment. Dr. Martin, her personal physician for the last 5 years, stood at the foot of her bed reviewing her chart with the particular frown he reserved for situations that displeased him. You were extraordinarily lucky, Elise. If that janitor hadn't found you when he did— His name is Michael Reynolds, Elise interrupted, her voice stronger than it had been the night before. And he didn't just find me. He recognized specific stroke symptoms that you missed during my physical last month. Dr. Martin's frown deepened. I diagnosed you with executive stress and migraines, which was entirely reasonable given your position and workload. The medications I prescribed did nothing for the numbness in my left hand or the occasional vision changes I reported. Elise finished for him. Symptoms that Michael immediately identified as stroke precursors. With all due respect, Elise, the man is a janitor, not a medical professional. His lucky guess. His wife was a stroke specialist at this very hospital. Elise cut in again, her CEO authority reasserting itself despite her hospital bed. He had enough medical knowledge to communicate precise information to emergency services and possibly save my life. I'd hardly call that a lucky guess. The door opened, and Victor Harris entered with the practiced concern of a man who had spent decades perfecting his professional demeanor. As Horizon's COO and Elise's second-in-command, Victor had been managing the company in her absence, a role he seemed to slip into with remarkable ease. Elise, thank God you're recovering. His voice carried just the right note of relief tinged with lingering concern. At 58, Victor maintained the trim physique and carefully colored hair of a man determined to project vitality. His tailored suit and signature red tie, his power color as he called it, completed the image of corporate reliability. The board sends their best wishes, of course. I've temporarily postponed the Nexus project presentation until you're back on your feet. Elise's eyes narrowed slightly. The Nexus project was her initiative, a revolutionary approach to stroke prevention medication that would position Horizon at the forefront of neuropharmaceutical research. Postponed? The FDA submission timeline is critical, Victor. Just a minor delay, Victor assured her smoothly. Dr. Martin has advised that you'll need at least 2 weeks of rest before returning to work. He turned to the doctor with a collegial nod. Isn't that right, James? Martin nodded with authority. Absolutely. Any stress could trigger another episode. Complete rest is essential. Elise felt a flicker of suspicion. In 15 years of working together, Victor had never voluntarily delayed a project, especially one as potentially lucrative as Nexus. His ambition was legendary within the company. His desire to eventually occupy the CEO position an open secret. 2 weeks is excessive, she said firmly. I'll take the weekend to recover and be back in the office Monday. Always the fighter, Victor smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. That's why Horizon needs you, but health comes first. Your father would have insisted on it. The mention of her father, Horizon's founder and the architect of its rise from small research lab to pharmaceutical giant, was deliberately placed. Richard Bennett had built the company on the promise of integrity in medical research, a legacy Elise had fought to maintain against increasing pressure for faster profits and reduced testing periods. My father would have expected me to fulfill my commitments, Elise replied evenly. The Nexus project timeline stands. Victor's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course, we'll discuss the details when you are discharged. He checked his watch, the Patek Philippe that had been his reward to himself when he became COO. I should get back to the office. The Richardson investors are waiting for updates on the Southeast Asian expansion. After Victor and Martin departed, Elise leaned back against her pillows, suddenly exhausted by the brief power play. The symptoms had begun 6 months ago. Occasional numbness in her left hand, brief episodes of slurred speech that she had attributed to exhaustion, headaches that seemed to affect her vision. Dr. Martin had dismissed her concerns, prescribing sleep aids and suggesting she consider a vacation. Now she wondered if she had missed something more significant, not just about her health, but about the carefully balanced power structure she had maintained at Horizon. Victor's eagerness to take control, even temporarily, felt predatory rather than supportive. Her thoughts were interrupted by a light knock at the door. The hospital's administrative director entered, clipboard in hand, her professional smile firmly in place. "Ms. Bennett, I hope you're feeling better. I wanted to personally check on your comfort and see if there's anything we can provide." Elise recognized the particular deference reserved for patients whose insurance coverage or personal wealth guaranteed the hospital's VIP treatment. "Thank you, I'm comfortable, but I would like some information about a hospital employee or former employee, a stroke specialist named Reynolds, Rebecca Reynolds." The administrator's smile faltered slightly. "I'd be happy to check our records. May I ask why you're inquiring?" "Her husband may have saved my life last night. I'd like to know more about her work here." "Of course, I'll see what information I can provide within our confidentiality guidelines." The administrator made a note on her clipboard. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" Elise considered for a moment. "Yes, I'd like the contact information for Michael Reynolds. And please ensure that my gratitude is appropriately expressed through whatever channels are appropriate." After the administrator left, Elise reached for her personal phone. Not the company device that Victor and the board could monitor, but her private line. She opened her banking app and transferred a significant sum to her personal foundation account. Whatever gesture of gratitude the hospital might arrange would be insufficient for the man who had recognized what her highly paid physician had missed. She began researching stroke symptoms on her phone, cross-referencing medical journals against her own experience over the past months. The more she read, the more convinced she became that her condition had been developing for some time and should have been caught much earlier by Dr. Martin. A new notification appeared on her screen. An email from Victor to the board, blind copied to several recipients but accidentally including her personal email. The subject line read, "Contingency Leadership Plan, Confidential Discussion." Elise stared at the notification, her heart rate increasing enough to trigger a small alert from her monitoring equipment. Victor hadn't waited even 24 hours before beginning discussions about her potential replacement. The timing went beyond opportunistic. It felt calculated, almost as though he had been waiting for this moment. For the first time, a troubling question formed in her mind. What if her stroke hadn't been an unfortunate medical event, but something more deliberate? The following Tuesday morning found Michael at his kitchen table, surrounded by rental listings from neighborhoods progressively farther from Chicago Center. Each option represented a difficult trade-off. Longer commutes versus lower rent, older buildings with maintenance issues versus newer construction with higher costs. None offered a solution that would allow them to maintain Noah's current school enrollment or their proximity to the community center where Noah attended after-school programs. A soft knock at the door startled him. The apartment building rarely received visitors, especially on weekday mornings. Through the peephole, he saw a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed in a simple but obviously expensive suit, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. It took him a moment to recognize her without the corporate backdrop. Elise Bennett, CEO of Horizon Corporation, standing in the dingy hallway of his apartment building. Michael opened the door, acutely aware of the contrast between her tailored appearance and his faded jeans and t-shirt. "Ms. Bennett, this is unexpected." Elise offered a smile that seemed genuine, if slightly uncertain. "Mr. Reynolds, I hope I'm not intruding. The hospital provided your address. I wanted to thank you personally." She extended the sunflowers. These seemed more appropriate than roses. "Please come in." Michael stepped aside, hastily gathering the rental listings and shoving them into a drawer. "And it's Michael. Mr. Reynolds was my father." Elise entered, her gaze taking in the modest apartment with its mismatched furniture and walls covered with Noah's artwork. "Then you must call me Elise." She hesitated, seemingly unsure of the proper protocol in this situation. I realize this is unconventional, but what you did, the doctors confirmed that your quick recognition of symptoms and immediate response prevented significant brain damage. I'm glad you're recovering well. Michael gestured toward the kitchen table. Would you like some coffee? It's nothing fancy, I'm afraid. Coffee would be wonderful. Elise sat down, placing the sunflowers on the table. The hospital mentioned that your wife was Dr. Rebecca Reynolds, who worked in their stroke unit until her passing 2 years ago. I'm very sorry for your loss. Michael busied himself with the coffee maker, grateful for the momentary distraction. Thank you. Rebecca was passionate about stroke awareness. She believed everyone should know the warning signs. She taught you well. Elise accepted the mug he offered. The paramedics were impressed with your knowledge. You recognized symptoms that my own physician had been dismissing for months. Before Michael could respond, the sound of a key in the lock announced Noah's arrival with Mrs. Patel, their elderly neighbor who walked him home from the bus stop on days when Michael worked nights. Dad, you're supposed to be sleeping. Noah burst into the apartment with the particular energy of children after school, then stopped abruptly at the sight of their visitor. Oh, hello. Elisa's face softened as she turned toward the boy. Hello there. You must be Noah. I'm Elise. Mrs. Patel hovered in the doorway, curiosity evident in her expression. Michael thanked her for bringing Noah home, and she reluctantly departed, clearly disappointed to miss whatever story explained the presence of this elegant stranger in Michael's kitchen. Noah approached cautiously, studying Elise with unabashed curiosity. Are you Dad's friend? Your dad helped me when I was very sick, Elise explained, crouching slightly to meet Noah at eye level. I came to say thank you. Noah's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Did he use Mom's special knowledge? The stroke stuff? Elise nodded, her expression gentle. He absolutely did. Your dad recognized that I was having a stroke when nobody else noticed. The doctors said he saved my life. Noah beamed with pride, his chest puffing out slightly. Dad knows lots about sick people because Mom taught him before she went to heaven. She was a doctor for people's brains. The innocent statement hit Elise with unexpected force. Here was a child who had lost his mother, being raised by a father working night shifts to keep food on the table, yet carrying his mother's medical legacy with such pride. Your mom sounds like she was an amazing doctor, Elise said softly. And your dad is pretty amazing too. He makes dinosaur pancakes on weekends, Noah informed her seriously, as if this skill ranked alongside medical expertise in importance. And he knows all the constellation stories, even the hard ones. Michael returned from putting the sunflowers in water. Buddy, why don't you start your homework in your room? I need to talk with Ms. Bennett for a few minutes. Once Noah had reluctantly disappeared with his backpack, Michael sat down across from Elise. I appreciate your coming all this way, but it really wasn't necessary. It absolutely was. Elise's tone became more direct, more like the CEO she was known to be. Michael, what you did goes beyond a simple thank you. I'd like to offer you a position at Horizon. Michael blinked in surprise. I don't have any medical qualifications. My knowledge comes from Rebecca, not from formal education. Yet you identified what a board-certified physician missed. Elise leaned forward slightly. Horizon has a patient advocacy division that evaluates our research protocols and treatment approaches from the patient perspective. Your practical knowledge would be invaluable, a viewpoint that isn't clouded by medical school orthodoxy or corporate priorities. Michael shook his head slowly. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking for charity. This isn't charity, Elise countered firmly. It's recognition of a valuable skill set. The position pays significantly better than night janitorial work, with regular daytime hours that would allow you more time with Noah. The mention of Noah made Michael pause. Regular hours would mean being home in the evenings, helping with homework, having dinner together every night instead of just weekends. Still, suspicion lingered. Why would you offer a position to someone you just met? Someone without credentials or experience in your industry? Elise considered her response carefully. Horizon was founded by my father to develop treatments that genuinely improved patients' lives, not just shareholders' portfolios. Recently, I've been concerned that we're losing that perspective. She gestured toward the apartment. You live in the real world, Michael. You've experienced healthcare both as the family member of a medical professional and as a regular person navigating the system. That perspective is increasingly rare in our executive meetings. Michael remained unconvinced, and it has nothing to do with feeling obligated because I happened to be there when you needed help. I don't mix gratitude with business decisions, Elise said firmly, but I do recognize valuable insights when I encounter them. The offer stands on its own merits. She reached into her purse and withdrew a business card. Think about it. For Noah, if not for yourself. As she rose to leave, Elise paused by the refrigerator, noticing the calendar with its color-coded notations and the past-due medical bill partially visible beneath a magnet. She said nothing, but her expression registered understanding of the financial pressures Michael was facing. Thank you again, Michael, for everything. At the door, she turned back. Oh, and I've established a small educational grant through my family's foundation. Noah will receive a full scholarship to Westridge Academy starting next semester. The notification should arrive tomorrow. Before Michael could protest, she was gone, leaving behind only the scent of expensive perfume and a business card with her personal phone number handwritten on the back. Noah emerged from his room, eyes wide with excitement. Dad, was that really the lady you saved? She looks important. She is important, buddy. She runs a big company that makes medicine. Michael stared at the business card in his hand, emotions conflicted. Are you going to work for her instead of cleaning at night? Noah asked hopefully. I don't know. It's complicated. Why, don't you want to help make medicine like Mom did? The innocent question struck directly at Michael's unspoken dreams. Before meeting Rebecca, he had once considered medical school himself, but family circumstances and financial realities had made it impossible. After her death, he had volunteered at a community clinic on weekends, applying what she had taught him to help those who couldn't afford proper medical care. Sometimes helping isn't that simple, Noah. Michael tucked the card into his pocket. Let's get started on that homework. Later that night, after Noah was asleep, Michael sat at the kitchen table with Rebecca's medical journal spread before him. He found himself reviewing stroke symptoms, treatment protocols, and preventative measures, knowledge that had become part of him through years of Rebecca's passionate teaching. The rental listings lay discarded nearby, a reminder of their precarious financial situation. Noah's school was sending notes home about the upcoming science camp that cost more than Michael's weekly paycheck. The refrigerator made concerning noises that suggested expensive repairs loomed, and now this offer from Elise Bennett, an unexpected lifeline that both tempted and troubled him. He picked up his phone and began researching Horizon Corporation beyond the basic knowledge he had as a night janitor. The company had started as a small research lab focused on stroke treatment and prevention, founded by Richard Bennett after his wife died from complications following a stroke. Under his leadership, Horizon had developed several groundbreaking treatments while maintaining an unusual commitment to ethical research practices. Since Elise took over following her father's retirement, the company had expanded into broader neurological research, maintaining its reputation for integrity despite industry pressure for faster development cycles and higher profit margins. However, recent financial reports showed increasing tension between research investments and shareholder expectations, tensions that coincided with Victor Harris's promotion to COO. Michael's search led him to a photo from a medical conference 3 years earlier. In the background, barely visible among a group of researchers, was Rebecca. She had never mentioned working with Horizon, but the conference had focused on experimental stroke prevention treatments, exactly her specialty. The coincidence troubled him. Was there some connection between Rebecca and Horizon that he didn't know about? Or was this simply the natural overlap in a specialized medical field? His phone rang, startling him in the quiet apartment. The hospital administrator calling well outside business hours. Mr. Reynolds, I'm sorry to disturb you so late. This is Diane Miller from Chicago Memorial. Her voice carried an odd tension. You asked about your wife's research records last year, and I'm afraid I misled you. There were additional files that were restricted. Michael sat up straighter. Restricted? By whom? I can't discuss that over the phone, but in light of recent events involving Ms. Bennett, I felt you should know. She paused, lowering her voice. Your wife was consulting on a Horizon pharmaceutical trial before her accident, The records were sealed under a corporate confidentiality agreement, but as her next of kin, you have legal rights to access them. Why are you telling me this now? Michael asked, suspicion growing. Because someone else was asking about these same records today. Someone from Horizon's executive team. Another pause. And they were specifically interested in any connection between Dr. Reynolds and Mrs. Bennett's current condition. After hanging up, Michael stared at the business card Elise had left. The job offer, the scholarship for Noah, the sudden interest in Rebecca's research. None of it felt like simple gratitude for a good deed. Something larger was at play, something that connected Rebecca's work, Elise's stroke, and Horizon Corporation. His phone pinged with a text message from an unknown number. Be careful whose offers you accept. Not everyone at Horizon values life over profit. Rebecca learned this too late. Michael felt a chill run through him as he looked at the photo of his late wife on the wall, her smile confident and determined in her hospital scrubs. What had Rebecca discovered? And what did it have to do with Elise Bennett's stroke? The following morning, as Michael prepared Noah's lunch, the doorbell rang. A courier delivered an official envelope from Westridge Academy, the promised scholarship notification, along with enrollment forms and a welcome packet. The prestigious private school would open doors for Noah that Michael could never provide on a janitor's salary. As Noah excitedly examined the school brochure, Michael's phone rang again. Elise Bennett. Have you considered my offer? She asked without preamble. I have some questions first, Michael replied, moving to the kitchen where Noah couldn't overhear. Did you know my wife worked on a Horizon research project before her death? The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. No, Elise finally said, her tone genuinely surprised. I wasn't aware of that connection. What project? That's what I'm trying to find out. Apparently her records were sealed under a corporate confidentiality agreement. Another pause. Michael, I need to see you today. Not at Horizon, somewhere private. There's something about my condition and Dr. Martin's treatment that doesn't add up. I believe your medical knowledge might help me understand what's happening. The park near the lake, Michael suggested. 2 o'clock. I'll be on the bench near the chess tables. After hanging up, Michael stared at the scholarship documents, then at the text message warning him to be careful. Noah deserved the opportunities this school would provide, the education that could lift him beyond their current circumstances. Yet accepting felt like stepping into something dangerous, something connected to Rebecca's death in ways he didn't yet understand. Dad, look! They have a real science lab and dinosaur fossils. Noah's excitement cut through his thoughts. The boy's eyes shone with a glow Michael hadn't seen since before Rebecca's death. In that moment, Michael made his decision. He would meet with Elise, accept the position at Horizon, and enroll Noah in Westridge Academy. But not out of gratitude or financial necessity. He would do it to discover the truth about Rebecca's research and its possible connection to Elise's stroke. Whatever secrets Horizon Corporation was hiding, Michael was now determined to uncover them. For Rebecca, for Noah, and for the woman whose life he had saved, but who might still be in danger from forces neither of them fully understood. Lake Michigan stretched before them like polished steel under the cloudy afternoon sky, whitecaps dancing across its surface as the wind picked up. Michael sat on the weathered park bench, watching joggers and dog walkers navigate the lakeside path. The chess tables nearby stood empty except for one elderly pair, locked in silent combat over weathered pieces. He spotted Elise approaching from the north entrance, her elegant figure incongruous against the casual weekend park crowd. She had exchanged her corporate armor for dark jeans and a simple blue cashmere sweater, but even in casual clothes, she carried herself with the unmistakable confidence of someone accustomed to authority. Her dark hair blew across her face in the lake wind, and she pushed it back with a gesture that seemed uncharacteristically vulnerable. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sitting beside him on the bench, a careful distance between them. I couldn't risk being overheard at Horizon. Michael nodded, his expression guarded. You mentioned concerns about your treatment. What exactly do you suspect? Elise reached into her shoulder bag and withdrew a manila folder. These are my medical records from the past 6 months, the official version Dr. Martin maintains. She handed him the folder. The hospital ran comprehensive tests after my stroke. The results show discrepancies with Martin's previous reports. Michael opened the folder, scanning the documents with practiced ease, a skill developed through years of reviewing Rebecca's medical papers. The discrepancies were immediately apparent to his trained eye. Blood pressure readings artificially lowered, cholesterol levels adjusted downward, concerning markers in blood work minimized or omitted entirely. "These aren't mistakes," Michael said quietly. "This is deliberate manipulation of medical data. Your stroke risk was visible in tests from months ago, but the reports were altered to show normal results." Elisa's face remained composed, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the bench. "Someone wanted me to believe I was healthy when I wasn't. The question is why. And how this connects to Rebecca." "Amanda and Rebecca," Michael added. "The text message I received specifically mentioned her discovering something about Horizon's practices." A jogger passed close to their bench, and both fell silent until he was out of earshot. The chess players nearby reset their board for another game, oblivious to the conspiracy being unraveled mere yards away. "I need access to your wife's sealed research," Elise said finally. "If she found something problematic in a Horizon trial, I need to know what it was. Even if it implicates your company, your leadership." Elise met his gaze directly. "Especially then. My father built Horizon on ethical research principles. If that's been compromised, I need to know." Michael studied her face, searching for deception, but finding only determination mingled with fear. "I've requested Rebecca's files from the hospital. They should be released to me by tomorrow. In the meantime, I should tell you I've decided to accept your job offer." Surprise flickered across Elise's features. "What changed your mind?" "Noah," Michael answered simply. "He deserves the opportunities that Westridge can provide. And if working at Horizon helps me understand what happened to Rebecca, that's something I need to pursue." Elise nodded slowly. "I'll have HR prepare your paperwork. You'll start Monday as a patient advocacy consultant." She hesitated, then added, "Victor doesn't know about this appointment yet. I'd prefer to keep it that way until you're established." "You suspect him?" "I suspect everyone right now." Elise's gaze drifted to the turbulent lake. "Victor has always wanted my position, but attempting to harm me medically seems extreme, even for him. Dr. Martin has been my physician for years. The idea that he would deliberately endanger my health is difficult to accept." "Difficult, but not impossible," Michael pointed out. "The evidence in these records is clear." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of conspiracy settling around them like the gathering storm clouds overhead. A distant rumble of thunder punctuated the gravity of their situation. "There's something else you should know," Elise said finally. "The Nexus Project, our major stroke prevention drug currently in final development, was initially researched by the team your wife consulted with. If there were problems with the research, if data was manipulated—" Michael felt his chest tighten. Millions of people could be at risk, and billions in potential profit would be lost, Elise added grimly. The kind of profit that might motivate desperate actions. As raindrops began to fall, they rose from the bench by unspoken agreement. Michael glanced at his watch, still 2 hours before he needed to pick up Noah from his friend's birthday party. "We should continue this discussion somewhere dry," Elise suggested, nodding toward the darkening sky. Michael hesitated, the boundaries between them still uncertain, despite their shared purpose. "There's a coffee shop around the corner, neutral territory." The rain intensified as they walked, forcing them to hurry towards shelter. By the time they reached the small, steamy cafe, both were damp despite the short distance. The warmth inside fogged Elisa's glasses momentarily, adding a moment of disarming normalcy to her usually polished appearance. They claimed a corner table, ordering coffee that arrived in mismatched mugs, a far cry from the fine china Michael imagined Elise was accustomed to. Yet she seemed completely at ease in the humble surroundings, wrapping her hands around the ceramic mug as though its warmth were a rare comfort. "Tell me about Rebecca," she said softly. "Not just her work, who she was." The request caught Michael off guard. "Why?" "Because I owe her my life too, in a way. Her knowledge, passed to you, saved me." Elise's expression softened. "And because understanding who she was might help us understand what she discovered." Michael stared into his coffee, memories rising like steam. Rebecca was brilliantly stubborn. Once she believed in something, nothing could move her. We met when I was doing maintenance work at Northwestern Medical School. A pipe burst in the research library. She was a second-year resident, soaked and furious because her research papers were wet. A small smile crossed his face. She made me help her dry every single page with a hairdryer. Sounds like someone who valued precision, Elise observed, to the point of obsession. But that's what made her an exceptional doctor. She couldn't stand when things didn't add up. Medical inconsistencies bothered her like physical pain. Michael's voice grew quieter. Her patients adored her because she fought for them relentlessly. She challenged senior physicians if she thought their diagnoses were off. Not always a quality that endears you to hospital administration, Elise noted. No, she clashed with the medical director several times, but her results were undeniable. Michael looked up from his coffee. If Rebecca found problems with a drug trial, she wouldn't have stayed quiet, regardless of confidentiality agreements or career implications. Which makes her sudden death all the more suspicious. Elise finished the thought that neither had fully voiced until now. The implication hung between them, heavy and disturbing. The rain lashed against the cafe windows, creating shifting shadows across their faces. Monday morning, Michael said finally. I'll be at Horizon with whatever information the hospital releases about Rebecca's research. Until then, we should be careful about being seen together. Elise nodded in agreement. I'll ensure your security clearance includes access to our research archives. If Rebecca's work intersected with Horizon, there should be records. As they prepared to leave, Elise hesitated. Michael, thank you. Not many people would pursue this, especially given the risks. I'm not doing it for you, he answered honestly. I'm doing it for Rebecca and for Noah. I understand. Elise's gaze was steady. Some debts can never be repaid, but they can be honored. Monday morning found Michael navigating the gleaming lobby of Horizon Plaza, visitor badge clipped to his shirt collar, feeling acutely out of place among the tailored suits and confident strides of corporate professionals. The receptionist directed him to the HR department on the 12th floor, where an efficiency-minded woman named Marion processed his paperwork with brisk professionalism. Patient advocacy consultant, she read from his file, eyebrows rising slightly. Interesting position. We don't usually hire without advanced degrees in this department. I have practical experience, Michael replied neutrally, signing where indicated. Must be quite impressive practical experience to bypass our usual requirements. Marion's tone remained professional, but her curiosity was evident. Ms. Bennett personally approved your application. I understand her perspective on patient needs. Marion handed him a security badge, employee handbook, and company ID. Ashley Peters, our HR director, would normally conduct your orientation, but she's in meetings all morning. Your department head will show you around instead. The elevator ride to the 28th floor, the executive level, heightened Michael's sense of displacement. His reflection in the polished doors showed a man clearly not born to this environment. His department store suit, a poor match for the bespoke attire he'd observed in the lobby, his haircut serviceable rather than stylish, his posture that of someone accustomed to physical rather than intellectual labor. The doors opened to reveal a reception area designed to impress. Marble floors, abstract art installations, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Chicago's skyline. A young assistant greeted him with practiced warmth. Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Kaminsky is expecting you. This way, please. He was led through glass doors into a conference room where a woman in her 60s sat reviewing documents. Sophia Kaminsky looked up as he entered, her sharp eyes assessing him through stylish red-frame glasses. Despite her age, her salt and pepper hair was cut in a modern, angular style that suggested someone comfortable balancing tradition with innovation. Michael Reynolds, welcome to patient advocacy. She extended her hand, her grip firm and confident. Elise has told me about your unique qualifications. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Kaminsky. Sophia, please. We're informal within the department, though the rest of Horizon runs on hierarchy and titles. She gestured for him to sit. I understand you have medical knowledge from your late wife, but no formal training? That's correct. Rebecca was thorough in her teaching, but I'm not pretending to be a doctor. Sophia nodded approvingly. Good, because what we need isn't another doctor. We have plenty of those who can't see beyond their medical school training. We need someone who understands how treatments affect real people, how medical jargon confuses patients, how side effects impact daily life. She slid a tablet across the table. Here's your first assignment. Horizon's developing a new stroke prevention medication, the Nexus Project. Phase 3 trials are nearly complete, FDA submission scheduled for next quarter. I want you to review the patient experience documentation. Michael took the tablet, trying to maintain a neutral expression despite the surge of anticipation. The very project potentially connected to Rebecca's research handed to him on his first day. What exactly am I looking for? Discrepancies, places where the clinical data doesn't match patient reports, areas where medical terminology might obscure patient experiences. Sophia leaned forward slightly. Your outsider perspective is valuable precisely because you haven't been indoctrinated into pharmaceutical thinking. Michael scrolled through the document, immediately recognizing the format from Rebecca's work. How long do I have? Initial assessment by Wednesday. We'll meet with the research team Thursday to discuss your findings. Sophia stood, signaling the end of their meeting. Your office is down the hall. It has set up your systems with appropriate access. If you need additional clearance for any files, let me know. As Sophia led him to a small but well-appointed office, Michael noticed eyes following them through glass walls, curious, evaluating, some overtly suspicious. The world of corporate pharmaceuticals was clearly not accustomed to new hires in jeans and department store blazers. Don't mind them, Sophia said, noticing his awareness of the attention. Horizon has becoming increasingly siloed under Victor's influence. The research division rarely interacts with patient advocacy unless forced. And where does Elise stand on that separation? Sophia's expression grew cautious. Elise fights for integration, for holistic approaches. It's made her not universally popular with those who prefer profit over patient outcomes. She paused at his office door. Speaking of which, I should warn you that Ashley Peters will likely question your qualifications aggressively. As HR director, she's firmly in Victor's camp. I'm not afraid of difficult questions. Good. Sophia's smile held a hint of mischief, because you'll be answering plenty of them at the department meeting this afternoon. Left alone in his new office, Michael immediately began exploring the limits of his system access. The Nexus project files were extensive but clearly sanitized for regulatory review. He needed the raw data, the original research notes, the kind of documentation Rebecca would have worked with. His phone buzzed with a text from Elise. Records arrived from hospital. Meet in third-floor archive room at 12:30. Use service elevator. At 12:25, Michael followed her instructions, taking the service elevator normally used by maintenance staff. The archive room was dimly lit and smelled of old paper and dust, a physical record storage facility in an increasingly digital world. Elise was already there, wearing a lab coat over her executive attire, a disguise that would pass casual scrutiny in the research-focused lower floors. Rebecca's files, she said without preamble, gesturing to a stack of folders on a metal table. I haven't looked through them yet. Michael approached the table with a sense of reverence. These were Rebecca's last professional works, her final intellectual contributions. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the top folder. Inside were research notes on early Nexus trials marked with Rebecca's distinctive handwriting in the margins. Pages of clinical observations, statistical analyses, and, most importantly, her personal concerns about inconsistencies in the data. She found something, Michael said quietly, turning pages. Patient reactions that weren't being properly documented. Side effects dismissed as unrelated to treatment. Elise leaned over his shoulder, reading alongside him. These test subjects experienced neurological symptoms similar to mini-strokes, but they were classified as stress responses or migraine equivalents. Exactly how Dr. Martin classified your early symptoms, Michael pointed out. Rebecca was flagging a pattern of misdiagnosis that masked potential dangers. They continued through the files, piecing together Rebecca's growing concerns in the months before her death. She had documented at least 7 cases where patients experienced neurological events that were systematically excluded from the official trial results. The last entry, Michael said, his voice tight with emotion, dated 3 days before her accident. She was preparing a formal report for the FDA about data manipulation in the Nexus trials. Elise sat heavily in a metal chair, the implications washing over her. If this report had been filed, the Nexus project would have been suspended. Horizon would have faced investigation, possibly criminal charges for falsifying trial data. And billions in development costs and potential profits would have evaporated, Michael finished. Someone had a powerful motive to prevent that report from ever reaching the FDA. The question is, who knew about it? Elise's face had paled. Victor oversees all research divisions, but he doesn't personally review trial data. There would have been project leads, research directors. Dr. Martin, Michael interjected. Could he have been involved in the original trials? Elise shook her head. Martin isn't a research physician. He's an internist who specializes in executive health. His connection to Horizon is through the board. He handles annual physicals for executives and advises on corporate health programs. Michael continued turning pages, stopping suddenly when a name caught his eye. James Martin is listed here, not as a researcher, but as the physician who evaluated several test subjects who experienced neurological events. He's the one who classified their symptoms as unrelated to the medication. Elise leaned forward to see the document. That can't be coincidence. Martin was deliberately hired as my physician after being involved in the Nexus trials. To monitor you, or to ensure your symptoms would be dismissed if the medication affected you? A chill settled over the dusty room as the implications crystallized. Elise had not just been neglected medically, she had been deliberately placed under the care of someone complicit in covering up dangerous side effects. I need to access the full Nexus research database, Michael said decisively. Not just the sanitized version they gave me this morning. That requires highest level clearance. Even I would raise flags accessing those files directly. Elise thought for a moment. There's another way. The quarterly research review is Thursday afternoon. All department heads present their progress directly to me and the board. Victor will have the research director present the complete Nexus data. Can you get me into that meeting? Better than that, I'll have Sophia assign you to formally review the presentation from the patient perspective. It's unusual, but within my authority. They carefully returned Rebecca's files to their folders, leaving them in the archive room to retrieve later. As they prepared to return to their respective floors, Elise paused. Michael, we're dealing with people who may have already committed murder to protect this project. You should consider the risk to yourself, to Noah. The mention of his son sent a wave of protective fear through Michael. I've considered them, but I also need to consider the risk to thousands of patients if this medication reaches the market with these side effects concealed. Elise nodded solemnly. Rebecca's courage seems to have found its match. The afternoon department meeting proceeded exactly as Sophia had warned. Ashley Peters, the HR director, dominated the discussion with pointed questions about Michael's qualifications and the irregular hiring process that had bypassed normal channels. Patient advocacy typically requires advanced degrees in medicine, psychology, or public health, Ashley noted, her tone professionally civil but underlined with challenge. Mr. Reynolds has none of these qualifications. Mr. Reynolds brings practical experience and a unique perspective, Sophia countered smoothly. Elise specifically requested his expertise for the Nexus project review. Ashley's perfectly manicured nails tapped against the conference table. Without questioning Ms. Bennett's judgment, I feel obligated to point out that hiring decisions made during medical recovery might warrant additional review. The implication that Elise's stroke had impaired her decision-making hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I assure you, Ms. Peters, my cognitive functions are fully intact. Elise's voice came from the doorway, where she stood observing the meeting. Her unexpected presence immediately altered the room's dynamics, back straightening, expressions shifting to professional neutrality. In fact, I'm pleased to inform you all that my recovery has been so successful that I'll be resuming full duties immediately rather than following the 2-week rest period originally prescribed. Ashley recovered quickly, offering a practiced smile. Wonderful news, Elise. We're all delighted by your rapid recovery. Thank you, Ashley. I'm particularly grateful for Mr. Reynolds' astute medical observations, which ensured I received prompt treatment. Elise moved into the room with deliberate confidence. His understanding of patient experiences is precisely why I've asked him to review the Nexus project from a practical implementation perspective. A ripple of surprise moved through the department heads at the table. The Nexus project was Horizon's most significant current investment, its success critical to the company's future growth. That's quite a responsibility for someone so new to Horizon, Ashley observed carefully. Fresh eyes often see what familiar ones miss, Elise replied. Michael will present his initial findings at Thursday's board meeting alongside the research team. After the meeting adjourned, Ashley approached Michael in the hallway, her professional smile firmly in place. Mr. Reynolds, I hope you didn't misinterpret my concerns during the meeting. It's simply my responsibility to ensure proper protocols are followed. Of course, just doing your job. Ashley lowered her voice slightly. A word of advice? Horizon operates on carefully balanced power structures. Elise's position is secure for now, but her recent health issues have raised questions among certain board members about long-term leadership stability. Meaning Victor is positioning himself as a contingency option, Michael translated bluntly. Ashley's smile tightened. I'm simply suggesting that hitching your career wagon exclusively to Elise might be short-sighted. Victor values loyalty, especially from those who recognize changing winds. I'll keep that in mind. See that you do. Ashley adjusted her designer blazer with a practiced gesture. The Nexus project is Victor's particular focus. He's personally guaranteed the board it will meet all timeline and performance targets. Any delays or complications would be unwelcome. As Ashley walked away, Michael considered the veiled warning. She hadn't directly threatened him, but the message was clear. Questioning the Nexus project meant challenging Victor, with potential consequences to his new position and possibly more. The rest of the afternoon passed in meticulous review of the sanitized Nexus data he'd been provided. Even in this carefully curated version, Michael could identify patterns that raised concerns, subtle inconsistencies in how adverse events were categorized, statistical methods that minimized certain outcomes, terminology that obscured rather than clarified risk profiles. At 5 o'clock, Michael packed up to leave, navigating the unfamiliar routine of corporate departure, the elevator small talk, the security badge checkout, the stream of professionals flowing toward parking garages and train stations. He found himself missing the solitude of night shifts, the empty hallways and quiet offices where his invisibility had been a kind of freedom. Noah was waiting at the after-school program, surrounded by craft supplies, and visibly delighted when Michael arrived earlier than usual. The program director, accustomed to seeing Michael only for late pickups, remarked on the change. New job, Michael explained simply, helping Noah gather his belongings. Regular hours now. Dad's working at the big medicine company, Noah informed her proudly. He helps make sure the medicine doesn't make people sick. The innocence of Noah's description struck Michael with painful irony, considering what he'd discovered about Nexus. On the bus ride home, Noah chattered excitedly about his day, oblivious to the weight of conspiracy and potential danger now surrounding them. Can we have dinner together every night now? Noah asked as they entered their apartment. Like before Mom went to heaven? That's the plan, buddy, and I'll be home to help with homework too. Noah's face lit up with joy that made Michael's chest ache. This is the best day ever. Can we call Mrs. Elise and tell her thank you for giving you the new job? The mention of Elise reminded Michael of the dangers they were facing. Not tonight, buddy, but maybe soon. How about we celebrate with pizza instead? Later, after Noah was asleep, Michael spread Rebecca's research notes across the kitchen table, cross-referencing them against the Nexus documentation he'd reviewed that day. The pattern became increasingly clear: systematic suppression of concerning side effects, particularly transient neurological events that mimicked mini-strokes. Rebecca had been building a case for deliberate data manipulation, documenting a pattern that went beyond simple error or optimistic interpretation. His phone buzzed with a text from Elise. Victor scheduled private dinner with key board members tomorrow night, discussing leadership stability according to my sources. Michael replied, moving against you already? Accelerated timeline. My stroke gave him opening. Need concrete evidence by Thursday meeting to counter. Well, a moment later, another text arrived. How's Noah adjusting to the idea of new school? The question, A question, personal rather than strategic, caught Michael off guard. He found himself responding honestly, excited but nervous, worried about fitting in. Understandable. Westridge can be intimidating. Would he like a private tour before starting? Might ease transition. Michael considered the offer. That's thoughtful. He would appreciate it. Saturday morning, I could show you both the science facilities. I hear dinosaurs are a particular interest. The exchange shifted something subtle between them, a reminder that beneath the conspiracy and corporate machinations were two people navigating an unexpected connection, one that increasingly involved Noah as well. Saturday works. Noah would love that. After setting his phone aside, Michael returned to Rebecca's notes with renewed determination. If Victor was accelerating his move against Elise, they needed to solidify their understanding of the Nexus cover-up quickly. The final pages of Rebecca's research contained references to a particular test subject, patient 37, who had experienced the most severe neurological reactions. Rebecca had flagged this case specifically, noting multiple inconsistencies in how the patient's symptoms were documented and classified. Michael searched the official Nexus files for any mention of patient 37, but found nothing. This patient had been completely removed from the trial documentation, their adverse reactions erased from the record. If they could locate this person, get their direct testimony about their experience in the trial. His planning was interrupted by a sound from Noah's room, a soft whimper that quickly escalated to frightened cries. Michael rushed to find his son thrashing in bed, caught in the grip of a nightmare. "Noah, buddy, wake up. It's just a dream." Michael gently shook the boy's shoulders until his eyes flew open, wild with lingering fear. "Dad!" Noah launched himself into Michael's arms, trembling. "I dreamed Mom's car crashed again, but this time you were in it too, and I was all alone." Michael held his son tightly, rocking slightly as he had when Noah was younger. "It was just a dream. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Promise? Wow. The simple question carried impossible weight. How could he promise absolute safety in a world where Rebecca had been taken so suddenly? Where he now suspected her death might not have been an accident at all? Where his investigation into Nexus might be placing them both in danger? "I promise I will always do everything in my power to come home to you," Michael said carefully. "That's why I took this new job, so we can have more time together, not less." Noah's breathing gradually steadied. "Can I sleep in your room tonight?" "Of course." Later, watching Noah finally sleeping peacefully beside him, Michael faced the full gravity of his situation. If Rebecca had been deliberately silenced for discovering Nexus's dangers, he was now following the same path, potentially toward the same fate. But unlike Rebecca, he had Noah to consider, a child who had already lost one parent and whose security depended entirely on him. Yet the alternative, walking away, allowing a potentially dangerous medication to reach countless patients, felt like a betrayal of everything Rebecca had stood for. She had dedicated her life to protecting patients, to maintaining the integrity of medical care against financial pressures and corporate interests. Morning brought no easy answers, but a determination to proceed carefully, to protect Noah while honoring Rebecca's final work. As Michael prepared for his second day at Horizon, he texted Sophia, "Need to discuss patient 37 from Nexus trials. Any records available?" Her response came quickly. "No official records under that ID. We'll investigate discreetly." The research department occupied the 15th through 18th floors of Horizon Plaza, a maze of laboratories, testing facilities, and specialized equipment representing hundreds of millions in investment. Michael's patient advocacy credentials granted him limited access to the main corridors and conference areas, but the secure labs remained behind keycard-protected doors. Sophia met him in the 16th floor break room, her expression carefully neutral as colleagues passed nearby. "Walk with me," she suggested, leading him toward a small courtyard garden built into the building's center, an architectural feature designed to provide natural light and a semblance of nature within the corporate environment. Once seated on a bench surrounded by carefully manicured plants, Sophia spoke quietly. Patient 37 was removed from all official documentation approximately 18 months ago. Their records were allegedly transferred to a different study classification, but I can find no trace of where they went. Who would have authority to completely remove a patient from trial records? Michael asked. That level of data manipulation would require approval from the research director at minimum, possibly higher. Victor. Sophia neither confirmed nor denied, but her expression spoke volumes. I did find one thing, a payment record. Unusual compensation to a trial participant, classified as a special circumstances settlement, requiring executive approval. A payoff to keep quiet about side effects? Possibly, but without the patient's name or contact information, we can't verify. Michael considered their options. The payment would have required financial documentation for tax purposes. Accounting records? Those would be under Ashley's ultimate authority as the executive responsible for HR and finance operations. And she's firmly in Victor's camp, Michael noted grimly. Yes, but Sophia hesitated. Ashley's assistant Diane has been increasingly troubled by certain irregularities she's been asked to process. She might be willing to help, discreetly. Is it worth the risk to her position? Sophia's expression hardened slightly. I've been at Horizon since Richard Bennett founded it. I've watched Victor slowly corrupt the company's principles, prioritizing profit over the patient's safety. If we don't act now, everything Richard and Elise have built will be perverted into just another pharmaceutical profit machine. Michael nodded, understanding the depth of her commitment. Arrange a meeting with Diane, somewhere outside Horizon. The garden door opened, and Victor Harris entered with a research team engaged in animated discussion about testing protocols. He stopped abruptly upon seeing Michael and Sophia. Kaminsky, Victor acknowledged with professional courtesy, before turning his attention to Michael. And Mr. Reynolds, our newest addition. Settling in well, I hope. Very well, thank you. Michael maintained a neutral expression, despite the tension coursing through him. I understand Elise has assigned you to review the Nexus project, Victor continued, his tone pleasant, but his eyes sharp with assessment. An ambitious first assignment for someone new to pharmaceutical research. I'm approaching it from the patient perspective, not the research angle, Michael clarified. My role is to consider how the documentation translates to real-world understanding. Admirable, Victor smiled thinly, though I wonder if perhaps starting with a smaller project might have been more appropriate while you acclimate to our industry. Elise felt Mr. Reynolds' unique background made him particularly suited to the Nexus review, Sophia interjected smoothly. Yes, his unique background. Victor's emphasis carried subtle mockery. I look forward to your insights at Thursday's presentation, Mr. Reynolds. The board will undoubtedly find a janitor's perspective on neurological pharmaceuticals. Illuminating. After Victor and his team departed, Sophia released a tight breath. He's concerned. That's good. It means you're on the right track. Or dangerous, it means I'm on his radar. Both, most likely. Sophia stood, professional demeanor firmly back in place. Diane will contact you about those records. Until then, continue your official review. Victor will be watching for any deviation from your assigned duties. The rest of the day passed in careful navigation of corporate politics, meetings where Michael's presence was met with thinly veiled skepticism, hallway introductions tinged with curiosity about his unusual hiring, and the constant awareness of being evaluated from multiple angles. By late afternoon, he had identified several areas in the Nexus documentation that warranted deeper questioning, legitimate concerns that would justify his presence in Thursday's board meeting without revealing their broader investigation. At 4 o'clock, Michael received a text from an unknown number. Coffee shop across street, 4:30. Bring empty folder. D. He created a pretext to leave the building, explaining to Sophia that he needed to check on Noah's after-school arrangements. The coffee shop was crowded with Horizon employees seeking better coffee than the office provided, creating perfect cover for the meeting. Michael spotted a nervous-looking young woman in the corner, clutching a manila envelope and frequently checking her phone. He ordered a coffee and casually made his way to her table. Mind if I sit here? Place is packed. Diane nodded slightly, keeping her eyes down. She couldn't have been more than 25, probably in her first corporate position, the weight of conspiracy sitting uncomfortably on her narrow shoulders. Leave your empty folder on the table when you go, she murmured, sipping her latte. I have what you need, but I could lose my job for this. We'll protect you, Michael promised. This is about patient safety. It's worse than that. Diane's voice dropped even lower. The settlement payment to patient 37 wasn't the only one. There have been others, classified as special compensation or consulting fees, all approved directly by Victor, all requiring unusual confidentiality procedures. How many? At least 7 that I've documented, all connected to the Nexus project. She glanced nervously toward the door. Ashley doesn't know I've been keeping separate records. She trusts me to process the paperwork without questions. Why are you risking your position to help us? Diane finally looked up, meeting his eyes briefly. My mother had a stroke last year. The idea that someone would knowingly release a medication that might cause more strokes. She shook her head slightly. I can't be part of that, no matter what it costs me professionally. Michael left his folder on the table as instructed, casually making his way out of the coffee shop. 10 minutes later, waiting at the bus stop, he checked the contents. Financial records for 8 separate payments to different individuals, all linked by a common project code. The most significant payment, $350,000, had gone to patient 37, now identified as Margaret Wilson of Evanston, Illinois. He immediately texted Elise, have name and address for patient 37. Significant payoff suggests serious adverse event. Her response was immediate. Cannot visit directly, too visible. Sophia? Too connected to Horizon, I'll go tonight. Risky. Victor watching you now. No choice. Thursday meeting approaching quickly. A final text from Elise. Be careful. Call of trouble. Evanston's tree-lined streets grew darker as evening settled over the lakeside community north of Chicago. Michael had arranged for Mrs. Patel to stay with Noah, explaining that his new job required an unexpected evening meeting. The modest ranch house belonging to Margaret Wilson sat on a quiet residential block, its porch light illuminating a well-tended garden. Michael approached the front door with carefully considered strategy. He couldn't claim Horizon affiliation, but needed to establish enough credibility to gain Margaret's trust. The door opened to reveal a woman in her early 60s leaning on a cane, her left side showing the subtle asymmetry of someone who had experienced neurological damage. Mrs. Wilson, my name is Michael Reynolds. My wife was Dr. Rebecca Reynolds from Chicago Memorial Hospital. She was reviewing the Nexus trial before her death, and I believe you were patient 37 in that study. Margaret's expression shifted from confusion to wariness. I'm not permitted to discuss that trial. There's a confidentiality agreement. I understand, but this is important, potentially life-saving for others. Michael kept his voice gentle but urgent. Rebecca identified serious concerns before she died in a car accident 2 years ago. Concerns about neurological side effects that weren't being properly reported. Margaret's hand tightened on her cane. I should call my lawyer. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm not here from Horizon or any regulatory agency. I'm here because the medication from that trial is about to be submitted for FDA approval without proper safety warnings. Something in his tone, the genuine concern, perhaps, or the mention of helping others, seemed to reach her. Margaret stepped back slightly. 5 minutes, that's all. Inside, the house revealed the adaptations of someone adjusting to partial disability. Handrails, adjusted furniture heights, specialized kitchen tools. Margaret settled carefully into a modified armchair, gesturing Michael toward the sofa. What happened to you during the trial? He asked directly. Margaret studied him for a long moment before responding. I experienced what they initially called a transient neurological event during the 3rd month of treatment. My left side went numb, my speech slurred, classic stroke symptoms. She gestured to her weakened left side. Except it wasn't transient. Some effects became permanent. How did Horizon respond? At first, they claimed it couldn't be related to the medication. Dr. Martin, the physician overseeing my case, classified it as an unrelated health event, likely caused by pre-existing conditions. Her expression hardened. But I had no relevant pre-existing conditions. I was healthy when I entered the trial. What changed? Why did they eventually pay you a settlement? Because it happened again, more severely, and I wasn't the only one. Margaret shifted in her chair, adjusting her position with practiced movements of someone long accustomed to physical limitation. I met other participants during treatment visits. At least 3 of us experienced similar events. When we began comparing notes, asking questions, That's when the settlement offers appeared, with confidentiality requirements, Michael guessed. Absolute silence or the money would be reclaimed and additional penalties applied. Margaret's gaze was direct now, challenging. We needed that money for ongoing care. They knew that. Would you be willing to break that agreement, to testify about what happened? Margaret laughed bitterly. And lose the funds that keep me independent? Face potential legal action from a corporation with unlimited resources? Why would I take that risk? To prevent others from experiencing what you did. To ensure proper warnings are included if this medication reaches the market. One person can't stand against Horizon, Margaret countered. Your wife tried, apparently. How did that end for her? The implication hung in the air between them, a suspicion Michael had harbored but never stated so bluntly. You believe her accident wasn't random. I believe pharmaceutical companies protect billions in potential profit very aggressively. Margaret's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry about your wife. She was one of the few researchers who actually listened when we reported symptoms. Would you be willing to provide a written statement, something we could use to ensure proper investigation, with your identity protected until formal proceedings begin? Margaret considered this. If you could guarantee my settlement wouldn't be endangered and legal protection would be provided, perhaps. But those are significant guarantees. I'm working with someone who can provide those assurances. Elise Bennett, Horizon's CEO. Margaret's eyebrows rose in surprise. The CEO is investigating her own company? She nearly died from the same side effects you experienced. She believes in her company's original mission, creating medications that help rather than harm. Michael leaned forward earnestly. With your testimony and others, we can force a proper safety review without killing the project entirely. The medication could still help people, just with appropriate warnings and monitoring. After a long moment, Margaret nodded slowly. I'll need those guarantees in writing, and I'll need to consult my lawyer. But if those conditions are met, yes, I'll provide a statement. As Michael prepared to leave, Margaret stopped him with a question. Your wife, was she happy in her work, despite the corporate pressures? The unexpected personal query caught Michael off guard. She was. Rebecca believed medicine should serve people, not profit margins. She fought for that principle every day. Then she died doing meaningful work, Margaret said softly. There are worse epitaphs. Wednesday morning brought a summons to Elise's office that raised eyebrows throughout the executive floor. Michael maintained a professionally neutral expression as he rode the elevator to the top floor, aware of the speculation his unusual access to the CEO must be generating. Elise's executive assistant, a polished woman named Caroline, led him through a sequence of increasingly impressive spaces, a general reception area, a conference room, and finally into Elise's private office with its commanding view of Chicago's skyline. The space reflected its occupant, elegant but functional, impressive without ostentation, the awards and recognitions displayed with tasteful restraint rather than egotistical prominence. Elise stood looking out over the city, turning as Michael entered. Unlike their park meeting, she was fully in CEO mode now, tailored suit, perfect makeup, the polished armor of corporate leadership firmly in place. Thank you for coming up, Michael. Please sit. She gestured to a seating area designed for more informal conversations than the imposing desk would allow. Once Caroline had left, closing the door behind her, Elise's professional facade relaxed slightly. What did you learn from Margaret Wilson? Michael summarized his conversation, emphasizing Margaret's willingness to provide testimony under proper protections. She confirms exactly what Rebecca documented: neurological events systematically misclassified by Dr. Martin, followed by settlements with strict confidentiality requirements. We need to approach the other patients as well, Elise said, making notes on a tablet. Establish a pattern of deliberate concealment. Margaret mentioned at least 3 others who experienced similar symptoms. The financial records Diane provided show 7 additional settlements. Good. I've spoken with our general counsel, Jonathan Myers. He's the only executive-level person I trust completely besides Sophia. He's preparing the necessary legal protections for these witnesses. Elise set aside her tablet, meeting Michael's gaze directly. There's something else you should know. The board meeting tomorrow has been expanded to include a vote on temporary leadership transition. Victor's making his move. Yes, he's convinced several board members that my health situation requires an interim leadership arrangement, with him as acting CEO naturally. A flash of anger crossed Elise's face. The stroke gave him the opening he needed. The timing is suspicious, to say the least. Do you think he deliberately caused your stroke? Through medication? Elise considered this carefully. I don't know. I've been taking several medications prescribed by Dr. Martin over the past year, supposedly for executive stress and migraines. It's possible one was actually an experimental version of Nexus, administered without my knowledge. We need to have your prescriptions analyzed, Michael said firmly. Independent laboratory, no connection to Horizon. Already in process, Jonathan is handling it through his personal physician. Elise rose, moving back to the window. The timing is critical now. Victor expects to assume control tomorrow afternoon. We need to counter with evidence of the Nexus cover-up during the same meeting. A very public confrontation. The only kind Victor can't maneuver around. Elise turned back to face him. This creates additional risk for you, Michael. Once we reveal what we know, Victor will understand your role in the investigation. I'm already committed, Michael said simply, but I need to ensure Noah remains safe. Of course, I've arranged for security at your apartment building, discreetly. And I've spoken with Westridge Academy about expediting Noah's enrollment. He could begin as early as Monday with their enhanced security protocols. The mention of Noah's education reminded Michael of their planned tour. Is Saturday still possible for showing Noah the school? A genuine smile softened Elise's professional demeanor. Absolutely, I've been looking forward to it actually. The admission seemed to surprise even her. Noah's enthusiasm is refreshing compared to corporate politics. The personal moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Caroline entered with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Bennett, but Mr. Harris is here with a preliminary board presentation. He's quite insistent. Of course, please tell him I'll be right with him. After Caroline departed, Elise quickly returned to her CEO posture. We'll need to continue this discussion later. In the meantime, gather whatever documentation you can for tomorrow. We'll only get one chance to present our case. Michael nodded, rising to leave. I'll coordinate with Sophia on the patient testimony. And Michael? Elise hesitated, something unspoken passing between them. Thank you for pursuing this despite the risks. I'm doing it for Rebecca, he said, echoing his words from their park meeting. But even as he spoke, he recognized the partial truth in the statement. His motivation had expanded beyond honoring his wife's work to include protecting Elise, preserving her father's vision for Horizon, and creating a safer world for Noah. As he left through the main reception area, he encountered Victor waiting with barely concealed impatience, a team of analysts hovering nervously behind him with presentation materials. Mr. Reynolds, Victor acknowledged with cold courtesy, quite the meteoric rise you're experiencing. From cleaning floors to private meetings with the CEO in under a week. Remarkable. Just doing my job, Mr. Harris. Indeed. And what exactly is that job, I wonder? Beyond leveraging a medical emergency into career advancement? Victor's smile remained in place, but his eyes hardened. A word of advice from someone who understands Horizon's culture. Corporate gratitude has a short half-life. Once the glow of heroism fades, performance metrics remain. I'll keep that in mind. See that you do. Victor stepped closer, lowering his voice. Tomorrow's board meeting will establish new leadership parameters at Horizon. Those who align with the future will prosper. Those who cling to the past won't. The threat, however veiled, was unmistakable. Michael maintained a neutral expression as he moved past Victor toward the elevator, feeling the executive's calculating gaze following him. The confrontation confirmed what they already suspected. Victor was confident in his takeover plan, unaware of their investigation into Nexus and his potential involvement in concealing dangerous side effects. The elevator doors closed, momentarily shielding Michael from the tensions of the executive floor. He released a measured breath, centering himself for what lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring either justice for Rebecca and protection for future patients, or a corporate victory for Victor that might endanger both Michael's new position and Elise's leadership. As the elevator descended, Michael's phone vibrated with a message from Noah's after-school program. Noah not feeling well, fever of 101, Please pick up when possible. Parental concern immediately overshadowed corporate intrigue. Michael texted Sophia that he needed to leave early for a family emergency, then headed directly to Noah's school. He found his son curled on a cot in the nurse's office, flushed with fever and unusually lethargic. "Hey, buddy," Michael said softly, placing a hand on Noah's forehead. "Not feeling so great, huh?" Noah shook his head weakly. "My head really hurts, Dad, and I'm cold even though the nurse says I'm hot." The school nurse provided the standard fever care instructions, suggesting Michael follow up with their pediatrician if symptoms worsened. The timing couldn't have been worse. Critical preparation for tomorrow's confrontation would have to be managed around caring for a sick child. At home, Michael settled Noah on the living room couch with blankets, fever medication, and dinosaur documentaries on television. The usual sick day protocol. While Noah dozed, Michael coordinated with Sophia via text, arranging for patient statements to be formalized and documentation prepared for the board meeting. By evening, Noah's fever had risen to 102.5 despite medication, and his complaints about headache had intensified. Worried, Michael called their pediatrician's after-hours line and described the symptoms. "Given his history of recent respiratory infections, I'd like him seen tonight," the on-call doctor advised. These symptoms could indicate several conditions that would require immediate treatment. The emergency room at Chicago Memorial was crowded with Wednesday night casualties, sports injuries, workplace accidents, and the usual assortment of unexpected illnesses. Michael carried a half-asleep Noah to the registration desk, the familiar hospital environment triggering memories of countless evenings waiting for Rebecca to finish her shift. 2 hours of waiting, examinations, and blood tests later, the pediatric resident delivered her assessment. "It's likely a viral infection, but given his elevated white count and specific symptoms, we'd like to admit him overnight for observation and IV antibiotics." Michael's heart sank at the implications. Noah in the hospital meant he couldn't attend tomorrow's critical board meeting. He stepped into the hallway to call Elise, explaining the situation. "Noah's health comes first," she said immediately. "Sophia and I can present the evidence we've gathered. But my direct testimony about Rebecca's research and Margaret Wilson's statement would be stronger," Michael argued. "The board needs to hear from someone without corporate interest." "Perhaps," Elise paused, considering alternatives. "What if we postpone the confrontation until Friday? Give Noah time to recover? Victor expects to take control tomorrow. If he succeeds, you might not have authority to call another meeting." The impossible choice hung between them. Noah's immediate care versus preventing a potentially dangerous medication from reaching the market and holding those responsible for Rebecca's death accountable. "There's another option," Elise said finally. "I could come to the hospital. We could conduct the meeting virtually, with you joining by video when your testimony is needed." The solution was imperfect but workable. "That could work. I'd need to coordinate with Noah's nurses to ensure someone's with him during my testimony. I'll have Ed set up the secure connection and brief Sophia on the modified plan." Elise's voice softened slightly. "How is Noah feeling now?" "Scared. He hates hospitals." Michael watched through the door window as a nurse adjusted Noah's IV. "Being here brings back memories of Rebecca for both of us. Would it help if I came by tonight? I could bring that dinosaur book we discussed for the school tour. Give him something to look forward to." The offer caught Michael off guard, a personal gesture extending beyond their professional alliance. "That's very kind, but unnecessary given everything else happening." "Sometimes small kindnesses matter most during crises," Elise replied. "Text me his room number once he's settled. I'll stop by on my way home." After ending the call, Michael returned to Noah's examination room, helping transfer him to a proper pediatric bed upstairs. The admission process completed, Noah finally drifted to sleep, his small hand clutching Michael's even in slumber. An hour later, a gentle knock at the door preceded Elise's entrance. She had changed from her corporate attire to casual clothes, jeans and a simple sweater that made her seem younger, more approachable. In her hands, she carried a gift bag and what appeared to be actual work files. "I thought you might need these for tomorrow's presentation," she said quietly, placing the files on the bedside table. "And this is for Noah when he wakes up." She set the gift bag beside the files. "Thank you," Michael said simply, touched by the gesture. "For both." Elise approached the bed, looking down at Noah's sleeping form with unexpected tenderness. He has your determination in his face, even while sleeping. Rebecca always said the same thing. Michael smiled faintly, though he has her intelligence, thankfully. I doubt that. Recognizing stroke symptoms in a corporate executive isn't exactly the mark of low intelligence. Elise sat in the visitor's chair opposite Michael. How are you holding up? This is a lot to manage at once. The genuine concern in her question broke through Michael's carefully maintained composure. Honestly, terrified. About Noah, about tomorrow, about what happens if we fail to stop Nexus in its current form. That's completely understandable, Elise said softly. Fear means you recognize what's at stake. Rebecca would have known exactly what to do, Michael admitted, both for Noah's fever and for exposing the research problems. I think she would be incredibly proud of how you're handling both. Elise leaned forward slightly. You're honoring her legacy while forging your own path. That takes remarkable courage. Their conversation continued quietly as Noah slept, shifting between tomorrow's strategic planning and more personal reflections. For a brief interlude, the hospital room became a sanctuary from corporate politics and pharmaceutical conspiracies. Just two people connected by circumstance and growing mutual respect. When Elise finally rose to leave, she hesitated at the door. Michael, whatever happens tomorrow, know that meeting you and Noah has been unexpected but significant. In my position, genuine connections are rare. Before Michael could respond, she was gone, leaving behind the work files, the gift bag, and a lingering sense that their alliance had evolved into something neither had anticipated. He turned back to Noah, stroking his son's hair gently as the boy slept through the hospital night, monitors beeping their reassuring rhythm. Tomorrow would bring their confrontation with Victor, their attempt to preserve Rebecca's legacy and protect future patients. But tonight, in this quiet room, Michael allowed himself to acknowledge that his motivations had expanded beyond justice for his late wife. Somewhere in this unlikely partnership with Elise Bennett, he had found a purpose that looked forward rather than back, and perhaps the first tentative steps toward healing for both himself and Noah. Morning would arrive soon enough with its challenges and consequences. For now, Michael settled into the uncomfortable hospital chair, one hand still holding Noah's, and allowed himself a moment of peace before the storm. Dawn broke over Chicago Memorial Hospital in gentle increments, morning light filtering through the half-drawn blinds of Noah's room. Michael awoke with a stiff neck from the awkward angle of the hospital chair, his hands still loosely clasped in his son's. The night had passed in the strange timelessness of hospital stays. Nurse checks every few hours, the quiet beep of monitors, the muffled sounds of a medical institution that never truly sleeps. Noah's fever had broken around 3 in the morning, his small body finally winning the battle that had sent them rushing to the emergency room. He slept peacefully now, his breathing even, his face no longer flushed with unhealthy heat. The pediatric resident had stopped by during early rounds, confirming what the monitors already showed. Noah was responding well to treatment and would likely be discharged by afternoon. Michael carefully extracted his hand from Noah's and stretched, his body protesting the night spent in upright vigilance. Today was Thursday, board meeting day. The culmination of their investigation into Nexus, the confrontation with Victor, the opportunity to finally learn the truth about Rebecca's death. And here he sat, miles from Horizon Plaza, anchored to his son's bedside by paternal duty and love. The hospital room phone rang softly. Michael answered quickly to avoid waking Noah. Mr. Reynolds? This is Caroline, Elise Bennett's assistant. Miss Bennett asked me to confirm the video conference setup for this afternoon's board meeting. It will be sending someone to the hospital by 11 to establish a secure connection from your room. Thank you, Caroline. Has there been any change to the meeting schedule? No, sir. The board convenes at 2 o'clock. Your segment is scheduled for approximately 2:30 after the initial Nexus presentation. Ms. Bennett suggested you might need childcare assistance during the meeting. I've arranged for a pediatric nurse to be available specifically for Noah if needed. The level of consideration surprised Michael. That's very thoughtful. Please thank Ms. Bennett for me. After hanging up, Michael noticed Noah was awake, watching him with sleepy curiosity. Are you in trouble at your new job, Dad? Noah asked, his voice still raspy from sleep. Michael moved to sit on the edge of the bed. Why would you think that, buddy? Because you look worried and you're talking about meetings from the hospital. Noah's perception, as always, cuts straight to the heart of adult complexities. Is Ms. Elise mad that you're here with me instead of there? No, not at all. In fact, she's making special arrangements so I can still participate in the meeting from right here with you. Michael smoothed Noah's rumpled hair. How are you feeling this morning? Better. My head doesn't hurt as much. Noah's eyes drifted to the colorful gift bag on the bedside table. What's that? A present from Ms. Elise. She stopped by last night while you were sleeping. Noah's eyes widened. She came to the hospital just to see me? She was concerned about you, and she brought some work files for me, but yes, she came to see how you were doing. Noah reached for the bag, pulling out a beautifully illustrated book on paleontology with museum-quality dinosaur renderings, along with a small plush triceratops wearing a tiny Westridge Academy t-shirt. A handwritten note was tucked inside the book's cover. For Noah, every great scientist starts with curiosity. Looking forward to showing you the school labs on Saturday. Get well soon. Elise. Wow, Noah breathed, already paging through the book with reverent fingers. This is the best dinosaur book ever. And look, Dad, the Triceratops has a shirt from my new school. Michael watched his son's delight with a complex mixture of emotions. The thoughtfulness of Elise's gift, perfectly calibrated to Noah's interests in their planned school tour, revealed an attentiveness he hadn't expected from someone in her position. She had listened, remembered, and connected with Noah's passions in a way that went beyond professional courtesy or obligation. The morning passed with Noah's condition steadily improving. The IT specialist arrived precisely at 11, setting up a secure laptop connection to Horizon's boardroom while maintaining professional discretion about the unusual arrangement. By early afternoon, Noah's pediatrician had signed discharge papers, though she recommended he rest at the hospital until evening as a precaution. Perfect timing, Michael told Noah as he helped him into a sitting position for lunch. I need to join this meeting at 2 o'clock, and then we can go home afterward. Can I watch? Noah asked, sipping apple juice through a straw. It's pretty boring grown-up stuff, buddy, but the nurse Ms. Elise arranged will be here to keep you company. At precisely 2 o'clock, the laptop screen illuminated with the live feed from Horizon's executive boardroom. Michael could see Elise at the head of the table, flanked by Sophia and a distinguished silver-haired man he presumed was Jonathan Myers, the trusted general counsel. Victor sat opposite, surrounded by his research team and Ashley Peters. Board members, primarily older men in expensive suits, filled the remaining seats, their expressions ranging from impatient to curious. Elise began the meeting with standard corporate formalities before addressing the agenda's first item. As you're all aware, the Nexus project represents Horizon's most significant current research investment. Before we discuss the leadership transition proposal, I believe it's important to review the project's current status and address some recently identified concerns. Victor leaned forward, his carefully cultivated professional demeanor barely concealing his irritation. The research team is fully prepared to present Nexus's impressive progress. We remain on schedule for FDA submission next quarter, with market projections exceeding initial estimates by 20%. Excellent, Elise responded smoothly. And safety profile? No outstanding concerns there? All safety parameters meet or exceed FDA requirements, Victor stated confidently. The research director will present the complete data package. For the next 20 minutes, Michael watched as the research director, a nervous man named Dr. Patel, presented carefully sanitized clinical data showing Nexus's apparent effectiveness with minimal side effects. The presentation was polished, convincing, and according to Rebecca's research notes, deliberately misleading. As Dr. Patel concluded, Elise nodded thoughtfully. Very impressive results. However, I'd like to introduce an additional perspective. She gestured to the screen where Michael now appeared. Many of you may recognize Michael Reynolds, who recently joined our patient advocacy division. Mr. Reynolds brings a unique viewpoint to the Nexus data. Michael could see Victor's expression harden as he realized the potential threat. Board members turned toward the screen with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Thank you, Ms. Bennett, Michael began, keeping his voice steady despite the pressure of the moment. My review of the Nexus documentation has identified several concerning discrepancies, between reported outcomes and actual patient experiences. He proceeded methodically, highlighting the areas where adverse neurological events had been reclassified or omitted entirely. Without directly accusing anyone of deliberate manipulation, he presented the evidence in clear, factual terms that even non-medical board members could understand. Most significantly, Michael continued, my late wife, Dr. Rebecca Reynolds, identified these same concerns while consulting on the Nexus trial 2 years ago. She documented multiple cases of stroke-like symptoms that were systematically excluded from official reports. The boardroom erupted in murmurs, Victor's face flushed with barely controlled anger. This is absurd, he interrupted. Mr. Reynolds has no medical credentials. He's a janitor playing at pharmaceutical analysis because Ms. Bennett has some misplaced gratitude for his assistance during her health episode. Elise raised a hand, restoring order. Mr. Reynolds' observations are supported by documentary evidence, which General Counsel Myers has independently verified. Additionally, we've obtained statements from 7 former Nexus trial participants who experienced significant neurological events systematically misclassified in our official documentation. Jonathan Myers distributed folders to each board member. These statements detail consistent patterns of adverse events, followed by substantial financial settlements contingent upon strict confidentiality agreements that would normally prevent these issues from reaching regulatory review. One board member, an older woman with a stern expression, looked up from her folder. These settlement figures are extraordinary for routine clinical trial compensation, and they required executive approval. She turned toward Victor. As COO overseeing research, would this have fallen under your authorization, Mr. Harris? Victor maintained his composure, though Michael could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Clinical trial compensation is handled through standard protocols. If there were irregularities, they would have originated at the research department level. Interesting, Elise noted calmly, because the authorization signatures on these settlements are yours, Victor, as are the directives to classify them under non-standard accounting codes that would avoid regulatory scrutiny. The room temperature seemed to drop as board members absorbed this information. Victor's carefully constructed narrative was unraveling before their eyes. This is a transparent attempt to undermine the leadership transition vote, Victor countered, attempting to regain control. Ms. Bennett is using these baseless accusations to distract from legitimate concerns about her health and capacity to lead. My health concerns were very real, Elise agreed. In fact, they were caused by the exact neurological side effects that Nexus trial participants experienced. Side effects deliberately concealed from regulatory oversight. She nodded to Sophia, who distributed additional documents. These are my medical records, alongside laboratory analysis of medications prescribed to me by Dr. James Martin over the past year. Independent testing confirms they contain compounds consistent with the experimental Nexus formulation. The revelation landed like a thunderbolt in the boardroom. Board members exchanged alarmed glances, the implications too serious to ignore. Are you suggesting, the chairman began, his voice heavy with disbelief. I am stating directly that Victor Harris, in collaboration with Dr. Martin, deliberately administered an experimental medication to me without my knowledge or consent, with the apparent intention of triggering health episodes that would justify removing me from leadership. Elise's voice remained remarkably steady despite the enormity of her accusation. Michael watched Victor's face transform as his carefully constructed plans collapsed around him. The controlled corporate mask slipped, revealing something darker and more desperate beneath. This is slander, Victor hissed. You have no proof of intent. Actually, Michael interjected, we do. Martin kept separate records of your meetings and the specific formulation adjustments made to Ms. Bennett's prescriptions. He provided these records to Jonathan Myers this morning in exchange for consideration in the inevitable legal proceedings. It was a calculated bluff, Martin. They had evidence of the medication tampering, but not explicit records of meetings. But Michael had observed enough corporate politics in the past few days to understand the dynamics of betrayal and self-preservation. Victor's eyes darted between board members, measuring support that was rapidly evaporating. Martin is attempting to save himself with fabricated claims. These accusations are completely unfounded. The boardroom door opened and Caroline entered with urgent purpose, approaching Elise to whisper something in her ear. Elise's expression shifted from controlled professional detachment to genuine alarm. "This meeting needs to recess immediately," she announced, rising from her chair. "Security has reported an unauthorized access attempt to our research servers. Critical Nexus data is being deleted as we speak." Board members reacted with confusion, but Victor's face betrayed him, a flicker of calculation that confirmed Michael's sudden suspicion. On his hospital room screen, Michael could see Victor's hand beneath the table, likely holding his phone, executing a contingency plan now that exposure was inevitable. "It's Victor," Michael said firmly, drawing all eyes to the screen. "He's deleting evidence before you can examine the original trial data." Security personnel entered the boardroom as chaos erupted. Victor rose abruptly, attempting to exit but finding his path blocked. What happened next unfolded with shocking speed. Victor shoved past a security guard, making for the door while shouting accusations of conspiracy against him. In the confusion, Michael's video feed briefly lost connection. When it restored seconds later, the scene had transformed. Victor was being restrained by security personnel, the boardroom in disarray, and Elise was directing emergency IT protocols to preserve critical data. "Michael," she called, noticing his feed had returned. "We need the original patient records from Chicago Memorial, the complete trial documentation Rebecca compiled. It might be our only backup if Victor's deletion succeeds." "I can access it remotely," Michael confirmed. "The hospital released Rebecca's complete files to me yesterday. They're in secure cloud storage." The next hour passed in tense coordination, Michael working from Noah's hospital room to transmit Rebecca's meticulous documentation to Horizon's legal team, while security and IT specialists at Horizon attempted to mitigate the damage to research servers. Noah watched with wide-eyed fascination as his father helped manage the crisis, occasionally asking whispered questions that Michael answered as simply as possible. By late afternoon, the immediate crisis had stabilized. Victor had been removed from the premises by security, pending formal investigation. The board had unanimously voted to retain Elise as CEO and initiate a comprehensive review of the Nexus project, including all safety data previously concealed. As the emergency board session concluded, Elise approached the camera directly. "Michael, thank you. Without your persistence, this deception would have continued, potentially harming countless patients once Nexus reached the market." "Rebecca deserves the credit," Michael replied. "She documented everything, created the trail we followed." "Yes, she does." Elise's expression softened slightly. "How is Noah feeling?" "Much better. We've been cleared to go home this evening." "I'm glad to hear it." She glanced over her shoulder at the still buzzing boardroom. "Things will be chaotic here for several days as we untangle this mess, but our Saturday tour of Westridge is still on the calendar, if Noah feels up to it." "I think he'd be very disappointed to miss it," Michael said, smiling as Noah nodded enthusiastically beside him. After ending the video connection, Michael helped Noah prepare for discharge, explaining the day's events in terms an 8-year-old could understand. Bad medicine was being fixed, people who lied were being held accountable, and most importantly, they could go home to sleep in their own beds tonight. As they gathered Noah's belongings, Michael's phone rang with an unknown number. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Detective Sawyer with Chicago Police, Special Investigations. We need to speak with you regarding new evidence in your wife's accident." Michael felt a chill run through him. "What kind of evidence?" "Evidence suggesting it wasn't an accident at all. We've received documentation from Horizon Corporation's legal department indicating potential criminal involvement in your wife's death. How soon can you come to the station?" Michael looked at Noah, happily packing his new dinosaur book and plush toy, blissfully unaware of this new development. "I need to get my son home from the hospital first. Could someone meet us at our apartment this evening?" The detective agreed, and Michael ended the call with hands that weren't quite steady. After 2 years of grief and adjustment, the possibility of learning the full truth about Rebecca's death and achieving justice for her seemed both desperately needed and terrifyingly final. By 8 o'clock that evening, Noah was tucked into bed with a new dinosaur documentary playing on the small television in his room, while Michael sat at the kitchen table with 2 detectives and Jonathan Myers, Horizon's general counsel. Spread before them were accident reports, phone records, and financial transactions that painted a disturbing picture. Based on the evidence Horizon has provided, along with our own investigation, Detective Sawyer explained, we believe your wife's car accident was deliberately caused. The driver who crossed the median had received a significant cash payment the day before from a shell company we've now linked to Victor Harris. Michael stared at the documentation, a roaring in his ears, nearly drowning out the detective's words. You're saying Victor hired someone to kill Rebecca because of what she discovered about Nexus? The evidence strongly suggests that conclusion, Jonathan confirmed. When our security team seized Victor's devices this afternoon, we discovered encrypted communications referencing Dr. Reynolds and the need to contain the situation before her FDA report could be filed. The driver died in the crash as well, Detective Morris, the second officer, added, which initially helped classify this as a tragic accident rather than a homicide. But the financial trail and recovered communications give us enough to pursue criminal charges now. Michael struggled to process the information. For 2 years, he had lived with the cruel randomness of Rebecca's death. A drunk driver, a rainy night, terrible timing. The thought that it had been deliberate, a calculated murder to silence her, transformed his understanding of everything that had happened since. Victor will likely be charged with first-degree murder, along with numerous corporate crimes, Detective Sawyer continued. DeMartin is cooperating in exchange for reduced charges. We'll need your testimony as the investigation proceeds. Whatever you need, Michael said quietly. Rebecca deserved better than this. She was trying to protect patients, Jonathan noted, his voice gentle with understanding. Horizon was founded on that principle. Richard Bennett established the company after losing his wife to a stroke that might have been prevented with better medication. The irony that his daughter nearly died from the very problem your wife identified. It's both tragic and telling. After the detectives departed with promises to keep Michael updated on the case, Jonathan remained behind briefly. Elise wanted me to convey her personal commitment to seeing justice done, both for Rebecca and for the trial participants who suffered harm. The Nexus project will be completely reformulated with proper safety protocols before any future development proceeds. Thank you, Michael said, walking Jonathan to the door, for everything your team has done to uncover the truth. Elise also asked me to give you this, Jonathan added, handing Michael an envelope. She said you might need some time to process today's revelations before returning to work. Take whatever leave you need. Your position will be waiting. Alone in the quiet apartment, Michael opened the envelope to find a handwritten note from Elise. Michael, words seem inadequate in the face of what you've learned today. Rebecca's courage in standing up for patients' safety ultimately cost her life, but her work will now save countless others. I understand if you need space to process this new grief. Noah needs you now more than ever. Your job will be waiting whenever you're ready to return. We still have important work to do, making Horizon the company my father intended, where patients come before profits. I hope you'll be part of that journey when the time is right. Until then, know that my thoughts are with you both. Saturday's school tour stands if Noah is feeling better. Sometimes normal activities are the best medicine for extraordinary pain. With deepest respect, Elise. Michael sat for a long time at the kitchen table, the note in his hands, tears finally coming after years of holding them back. The truth about Rebecca's death brought both closure and fresh pain, the confirmation that her final act had been one of professional courage, standing up for patients against corporate pressure, even as it put her in danger. Noah appeared in the doorway in dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. Dad, are you crying? Michael wiped his face quickly. A little bit, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups need to cry too. Noah climbed into his lap, small arms wrapping around his neck with instinctive comfort. Is it because you miss Mom? Yes, and because I found out something important about why she died. Noah pulled back slightly, studying his father's face with solemn curiosity. Was it because of the bad medicine you were talking about today? Michael nodded, amazed at his son's intuitive understanding. Mom discovered the medicine might hurt people instead of helping them. She was trying to fix it, to protect patients. Like you fixed Ms. Elise when she was sick, Noah concluded with perfect 8-year-old logic. Exactly like that. Noah considered this information with the particular gravity children sometimes bring to adult matters. So Mom was a hero, and now you're a hero too, fixing the same problem. Mom was definitely the hero, Michael agreed. I just followed the path she started. I think, Noah said with deliberate care, that Mom would be really proud of you. The simple statement, delivered with absolute childhood certainty, broke through Michael's remaining defenses. He hugged Noah tightly, this miraculous boy who somehow carried Rebecca's wisdom and compassion alongside Michael's determination. And I know she'd be super proud of you too, buddy. Saturday morning brought clear skies and mild temperatures, perfect weather for their postponed tour of Westridge Academy. Noah had recovered fully from his illness, his energy restored and multiplied by excitement about visiting his potential new school. Michael had spent Friday in meetings with detectives and Horizon's legal team, providing additional documentation and testimony for the case against Victor. The investigation had expanded to include corporate fraud, attempted murder regarding Elise's medication tampering, and first-degree murder charges for Rebecca's death. Dr. Martin had agreed to testify against Victor in exchange for leniency, confirming that he had deliberately misdiagnosed Elise's symptoms under Victor's direction. The media had begun reporting on the Horizon Health scandal, though Rebecca's name had been kept out of public coverage at Michael's request, protecting Noah from learning the full details through news reports rather than his father's careful explanations. Elise was waiting for them at Westridge's main entrance, dressed casually in jeans and a light sweater that made her appear more like a fellow parent than a corporate CEO. She greeted Noah with genuine warmth, asking about his recovery and dinosaur preferences with the focused attention that children immediately recognize as authentic interest. I brought my new book to show the science teacher, Noah informed her seriously. Do you think they'll be impressed by my dinosaur knowledge? Absolutely, Elise assured him. Westridge values students who have passion for learning, especially self-directed learning like your dinosaur research. The tour proceeded through state-of-the-art facilities, science laboratories with equipment many colleges would envy, art studios flooded with natural light, a library that balanced digital resources with the irreplaceable magic of physical books. Noah's eyes grew wider with each new discovery, but his true excitement erupted when they reached the paleontology section of the science department. Real fossils, he exclaimed, approaching the display cases with reverent steps. Dad, look, they have an actual Triceratops horn fragment. The science teacher on weekend duty, an enthusiastic woman named Ms. Chen, noticed Noah's expertise immediately. You really know your dinosaurs, young man. Are you interested in becoming a paleontologist? Yes, or maybe a doctor like my mom was. She fixed people's brains after strokes. Noah turned to Michael. Dad, could I be both, a doctor who also studies dinosaur bones? Absolutely, Michael assured him, catching Elise's smile at Noah's ambition. People can have multiple specialties if they work hard enough. As Ms. Chen gave Noah a special behind-the-scenes tour of additional fossil specimens, Michael and Elise found themselves momentarily alone in the school's sunlit courtyard. He's remarkable, Elise observed. So resilient, so curious. You've done an amazing job with him, especially considering what you've both been through. Thank you. Michael watched through the window as Noah carefully examined a fossilized footprint. Children are surprisingly adaptable, more so than adults sometimes. He's incorporated Rebecca's absence into his worldview without letting it define him. A valuable skill at any age. Elise hesitated before adding, how are you processing the news about Rebecca's death? Jonathan mentioned you've been extraordinarily composed through the investigation. Michael considered the question thoughtfully. I'm still working through it. The anger comes in waves, knowing someone deliberately took her from us. That Noah lost his mother because of corporate greed. He sighed heavily. But there's also a strange comfort in knowing she died for something she believed in, protecting patients from harm. It aligns with who she was. Purpose in tragedy doesn't diminish the loss, but it can help make sense of it, Elise offered quietly. My mother's stroke is what drove my father to found Horizon, to develop better treatments so other families wouldn't suffer as we did. Her death had meaning, though we still missed her every day. The parallel between their experiences created a moment of understanding that transcended words. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Noah's animated conversation with Miss and Ms. Chen through the window. I've been thinking about your offer, Michael said finally, about returning to Horizon when I'm ready. And I want to come back, not just to honor Rebecca's work, but because I believe in what you're trying to rebuild, a company that prioritizes patients over profits. He turned to face her directly. The patient advocacy role means something to me now. Using Rebecca's knowledge to ensure medications actually help people rather than harm them. Elise's expression warmed with genuine pleasure. I was hoping you'd say that. Your perspective is exactly what Horizon needs as we restructure. The board has approved a complete reorganization of our research protocols, with patient advocacy involved from the earliest development stages. Noah's voice interrupted their conversation as he rushed into the courtyard clutching a casting of a dinosaur tooth. Ms. Chen says I can keep this. It's a replica they make for special visitors. And she said if I come to Westridge, I could join the Junior Paleontology Club, even though it's usually just for older kids. His excitement was contagious, bringing smiles to both adults. As they continued the tour, Michael noticed the easy rapport developing between Noah and Elise, her genuine interest in his observations, his growing comfort in her presence. Something was healing in both of them through this unexpected connection, a gradual filling of empty spaces left by profound losses. After the tour concluded, Elise suggested lunch at a nearby cafe known for its dinosaur-themed children's menu. Over stegosaurus sandwiches and pterodactyl fries, Noah regaled them with facts from his new book, occasionally asking Elise surprisingly insightful questions about how companies like Horizon develop new medicines. So you make medicine that stops strokes, like what happened to you and what Mom helped people with? Noah clarified, connecting the pieces in his mind. That's exactly right, Elise confirmed, though sometimes people forget that medicines need to be both effective and safe. That's why your dad's job is so important. He helps make sure we remember the safe part. Because he knows what Mom taught him about strokes. Noah nodded with perfect comprehension. And that's why the bad man tried to hurt you with the wrong medicine. Michael and Elise exchanged surprised glances at Noah's straightforward summary of complex corporate malfeasance. That's a very good way to put it, Elise acknowledged. Dad explained it to me, Noah said matter-of-factly, dipping a French fry in ketchup. The bad man wanted to be the boss so much that he forgot medicines are supposed to help people, not hurt them. Out of the mouths of babes, Michael thought, marveling at how Noah had distilled weeks of corporate intrigue and criminal investigation into one perfectly accurate sentence. As lunch concluded, Noah's energy finally began to wane after the excitement of the morning. His eyelids grew heavy, the aftermath of his recent illness catching up with him. I think someone needs an afternoon nap, Michael observed, watching Noah struggle to stifle a yawn. I'm not tired, Noah protested automatically, even as he rubbed his eyes. We haven't seen the playground yet. The playground will still be here next time, Elise promised. Westridge isn't going anywhere. Outside the cafe, as they prepared to part ways, Noah surprised both adults by spontaneously hugging Elise. Thank you for showing me the dinosaurs in the school. I really want to go there. Elise returned the embrace with natural warmth. We're looking forward to having you, Noah. Students with your curiosity make Westridge a special place. As Noah climbed into Michael's car, already half asleep despite his protests of wakefulness, Elise and Michael shared a moment of private conversation. He's going to be fine there, Elise assured him. The scholarship is permanent, regardless of your role at Horizon. I want to be clear about that. Thank you for everything. The school, the room, finding the truth about Rebecca. Elise hesitated, then spoke with careful honesty. These past weeks have been transformative for me as well. Nearly dying changes your perspective on what matters. So does discovering your company has strayed from its founding principles. She met his gaze directly. Meeting you and Noah, it's been an unexpected reminder of why my father started Horizon in the first place. Not for profit or prestige, but to help people when they're most vulnerable. The moment between them held possibility. Not romance exactly, but a connection based on shared purpose and mutual respect that might evolve into something deeper with time. Neither rushed to define it, understanding that healing and rebuilding came first for both of them. I'll see you Monday morning, Elise asked, the question carrying multiple layers of meaning. Monday morning, Michael confirmed. We have important work to do. So, 1 year later, the Rebecca Reynolds Center for Patient Safety occupied the renovated 15th floor of Horizon Plaza, its glass-walled entrance showcasing the center's mission statement, advancing medical innovation with unwavering commitment to patient well-being. The space hummed with the energy of researchers, patient advocates, and medical professionals working together to ensure that pharmaceutical development never again sacrificed safety for profit or expediency. Michael's office overlooked the Chicago skyline, the view a daily reminder of how much had changed in a year. As Director of Patient Advocacy, he now led a department responsible for integrating patient perspectives into every stage of Horizon's research process. His desk displayed dual-framed photos, Rebecca in her white coat on one side, Noah proudly wearing his Westridge uniform on the other. The criminal case against Victor Harris had concluded 3 months earlier with multiple convictions, including first-degree murder for Rebecca's death. The sentencing had brought a measure of justice, though Michael had learned that closure was less a destination than an ongoing process. He still visited Rebecca's grave monthly, sometimes with Noah, sometimes alone, sharing updates on their lives and the impact her work continued to have. Noah had thrived at Westridge, his natural intelligence flourishing in the supportive environment. His interest in both medicine and paleontology remained strong, now supported by science curriculum that challenged and engaged him. Weekend dinosaur pancakes remained a sacred ritual, though they were occasionally shared with a third person now. A knock at Michael's office door preceded Elise's entrance. As Horizon CEO, she had led the company through massive restructuring, returning to Richard Bennett's original vision while implementing new safeguards to prevent future ethical breaches. The Nexus project had been completely reformulated with proper safety protocols and transparent reporting requirements, now showing promise as a truly beneficial stroke prevention medication. "Ready for the FDA presentation tomorrow?" she asked, setting a folder on his desk. "As ready as we'll ever be. The safety data is impeccable this time." Michael gestured to the chair across from him. "Noah wanted me to remind you about the science fair tomorrow night. His dinosaur evolution project is in the final round." "Already on my calendar," Elise assured him. "I wouldn't miss it." Their relationship had evolved gradually over the past year, beginning with professional collaboration and Saturday activities with Noah, slowly expanding to include dinners, long conversations, and eventually a deeper personal connection. They moved carefully, mindful of Noah's adjustment and their own complicated histories, but with growing certainty about the path they were on together. "The Memorial Garden dedication is scheduled for next month," Elise mentioned, referring to the green space being created behind Horizon Plaza in Rebecca's honor. "The board unanimously approved naming it after her." She would have been embarrassed by the attention, Michael smiled, but secretly pleased that her work made such an impact. "Impact that continues through you," Elise pointed out. "The patient advocacy protocols you've developed are being adopted by other pharmaceutical companies. The industry is changing because of what happened here." Michael nodded, grateful that Rebecca's legacy extended beyond Horizon to influence broader medical research practices. The terrible events surrounding her death had ultimately created positive change for countless future patients, a bittersweet victory that honored her life's purpose. Later that evening in Michael and Noah's apartment, now in a better neighborhood closer to Westridge, the three of them prepared dinner together in easy domesticity. Noah regaled them with details about his science project while chopping vegetables with the careful concentration of a 9-year-old given important responsibility. "Ms. Chen says my project might win the whole competition," he announced proudly. "And if it does, I get to present it at the Natural History Museum next month." "That's incredible, buddy," Michael praised, exchanging a smile with Elise over Noah's head. As they sat down to eat, Noah suddenly grew serious, looking between the adults with thoughtful consideration. "Dad, I was thinking about something." "What's on your mind?" "Well, Ms. Elise comes over a lot now, and she helps with my homework, and she knows about dinosaurs, and she makes you laugh." Noah listed these qualifications with methodical precision. "So I was wondering if maybe she could just live here with us instead of having her own place. It would be more efficient." Michael nearly choked on his water, while Elise's expression shifted from surprise to barely suppressed amusement. "That's quite a logical proposal," Michael managed, recovering his composure. But that's a big decision that grown-ups need to think about carefully. I've been thinking about it carefully for weeks, Noah countered with impeccable 9-year-old logic. And I decided it would be good. Mom would think so too. The casual certainty of this last statement caught Michael off guard. What makes you say that, buddy? Noah shrugged as if the answer were obvious. Because Mom always said helping people was the most important thing. And we all help each other be less sad and more happy, so she would like that. The simple wisdom silenced both adults momentarily. Noah, satisfied that he had made his point, returned his attention to dinner, unaware of the emotional impact of his words. Later, after Noah was asleep, Michael and Elise sat on the small balcony overlooking the city lights, processing the evening's unexpected conversation. Out of the mouths of babes, Elise said softly. He has a remarkably clear perspective. He always has, Michael agreed. Even when Rebecca died, he somehow understood things I was struggling to accept. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Elise spoke again. He's right, about us helping each other be less sad and more happy. This past year has brought healing I didn't expect to find. Michael reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. For me too, and for Noah. So what do you think? Elise asked, her tone light but her eyes serious. Is Noah's efficiency argument compelling? Michael laughed softly. Leave it to my son to approach emotional matters with practical logic. He grew more serious, turning to face her directly. I think we should consider it, not because it's efficient, but because it feels right. Because somehow, through the most unlikely circumstances, we've become a family. A rather unconventional origin story, Elise noted with a smile. The best ones often are. Shin. 5 years later, the Chicago Memorial Hospital Stroke Center buzzed with the controlled urgency of a well-functioning medical facility. On the wall near the entrance, a bronze plaque commemorated Dr. Rebecca Reynolds, whose research and advocacy had transformed stroke treatment protocols and pharmaceutical safety standards across the industry. In the family waiting area, Noah Reynolds, now 14 and lanky with adolescence, sat explaining stroke warning signs to a worried family whose grandmother had been admitted an hour earlier. His confident knowledge and compassionate delivery belied his age, the legacy of a mother he barely remembered and a father who had ensured her work continued. The doctors here are the best, Noah assured them, and the treatment protocols are really advanced. My mom helped develop some of them before I was born. Nearby, Michael watched with quiet pride as his son naturally embodied the compassion and knowledge that had defined Rebecca. The teenage years had brought typical challenges, but Noah's essential character remained unchanged, curious, kind, and determined to make a difference. Elise joined them, having completed her quarterly review of the Stroke Center that Horizon Foundation now partially funded. Their marriage 3 years earlier had merged their personal and professional lives in ways that strengthened both. Together, they had expanded Horizon's patient advocacy programs internationally while establishing the Reynolds Foundation to support medical education for underprivileged students. Ready to go, gentlemen? She asked, resting a hand briefly on Michael's shoulder. Sarah's recital starts in an hour. Sarah Reynolds Bennett, their adopted 4-year-old daughter, had joined their family the previous year. A stroke survivor herself whose parents had died in the same accident that caused her brain injury. Her remarkable recovery had been facilitated by treatments developed through the Rebecca Reynolds Center, creating a connection that had drawn Michael and Elise to her immediately. Noah gathered his belongings, saying goodbye to the family he'd been comforting. I told him Grandma's in good hands here. The survival rates have improved 38% since the new protocols were implemented. He's definitely your son, Elise murmured to Michael with affectionate amusement. Statistics as reassurance is pure Reynolds. As they walked through the hospital corridors toward the exit, Michael felt the familiar blend of memory and presence that these halls always evoked. Echoes of Rebecca rushing between patients, her voice explaining stroke symptoms with passionate clarity, her dedication to saving lives even when systems worked against her. The pain of losing her had transformed over years into something different, not smaller but more integrated into who he had become, a defining experience that had ultimately led to unexpected joy. Outside, the spring sunshine illuminated the hospital's memorial garden, where patients engaged in rehabilitation exercises amid blooming flowers. A young therapist was demonstrating arm movements to an elderly stroke survivor, her patience and encouragement reminiscent of Rebecca's approach. "Dad, can we stop by the lab tomorrow after school?" Noah asked as they walked toward the parking lot. "Dr. Chen wants me to see the new 3D imaging system they're using for brain perfusion studies." "Of course," Michael agreed, recognizing that Noah's interest in neurology was evolving from childhood curiosity into potential vocation. Whether he ultimately pursued medicine, paleontology, or some unique combination of both, his foundation had been built on Rebecca's legacy and strengthened by the unexpected family they had formed in the aftermath of tragedy. In the car, Noah plugged in his phone to call Sarah's preschool, checking if she needed anything special for her recital. The easy affection between the siblings had developed naturally and immediately, as though Sarah had always been meant to join their family. "Life takes such unexpected turns," Elise observed quietly as Noah chatted with Sarah's teacher. "If someone had described our current reality to either of us 5 years ago, we wouldn't have believed it possible," Michael finished, reaching for her hand, from crisis to connection to family. The path from that night in Horizon Plaza's conference room to today had been neither straight nor easy. There had been grief to process, justice to pursue, healing to embrace, and new bonds to forge. The story contained both tragedy and triumph, loss and discovery, endings that became unexpected beginnings. As they drove towards Sarah's preschool, Michael reflected on the strange alchemy that had transformed Rebecca's death from senseless tragedy into the catalyst for countless saved lives, for reformed pharmaceutical practices, for the family now surrounding him. The janitor who had once moved invisibly through corporate hallways now helped shape policies that protected patients worldwide. The CEO who had faced deliberate medical harm now led the industry in ethical research standards. And Noah, who had lost his mother far too young, now helped others understand the very conditions she had dedicated her life to treating. Rebecca's voice seemed to echo in his mind, a memory from long ago. "You never know when knowledge might save someone's life." Her words had proven prophetic in ways she could never have imagined, creating ripples that continued to expand outward, touching countless lives through the family that carried her legacy forward. Some connections, Michael had learned, transcended conventional understanding, between past and present, between loss and discovery, between lives that briefly intersected and forever changed each other. In the car, filled with family conversation and afternoon sunlight, that understanding brought a peace that acknowledged both what had been lost and what had been found along the winding, unexpected journey that followed.